Well, apparently I'm live. All right. Um, Good evening. Let me see. Whoops. What am I doing? As usual, I'm live and I'm still trying to set things up. Let's see. Okay. Hold on a minute. Let me wake back up. I streamed earlier today on the Behind the Screens channel. It's always kind of getting back on is always tough. I don't know why. When I'm by myself, there seems to be this lethargy that I have to fight. Lethargy. Uh, Something I gotta kind of fight through. And I definitely was feeling that after getting something to eat and oh, cool. I can do some things like they have some new tools. Specifically looking at Q&A and a poll. I don't have anything to poll with. I suppose I could put the Q&A up for now. Yeah. No, I don't think I don't have anything to queue. I don't have anything really to queue or A. I'll come back to it. I will come back to it. What are these other new buttons? Oh, okay. All right. So I got two things, as you can tell by the title of this video. One is to do or I shouldn't say one. All right. First, I guess I thought I would do first a recap of running Troupe on Thursday. I'm running the game and I'm having a lot of fun. This is the first time I was running it online virtually, and there are some lessons I have, not so much about the game, my game, but just about things I would do, I think, a little bit differently if and when. I mean, not if, I will definitely run more games online. And then I thought we would look at it's been sitting way too long. Tomb Robbers of the Crystal Tomb Robbers of the Crystal Frontier by Gus L, who's kind enough to send this to me via. This is the POD from Drive-Thru that looks very nice. Oh, very nice. So we'll do that afterwards. Let me see. What was I? Where was I? Okay. So my Thursday game was off this week. And I reached out to the other group. So I've mentioned this a couple times, right? So I'm playing a game on Thursdays, but there's also a group of guys that I'm in contact with who are also in Brooklyn, so relatively close to home, that I do weekly games. And it's been really great because on the occasions when my game doesn't happen, I often can fall back on joining one of their games. So it's been really good. I've gotten to play a couple different things. I think the last time I was in a game on the Thursday, we played the One Ring, which I had fun with, but I think I went over in some other chat, other folks had some difficulties with. So I reached out and said, "Hey, my Thursday's off. Is there what's going on for their Thursday?" And usually I have something going on. This week or this past week I'm not sure, because I'm not necessarily on top of the Thursday stuff. I don't know if they're in a little bit of a drought. Hey, Brian Smith. I don't know if they're in a little bit of a drought of gaming or just, the ebbs and flows of availability and whatnot, but there was nothing going on. So I said, well, I can't host because my wife and my daughter are here. And our apartment, city folk, I think we'll have or at least maybe I should say kind of, I don't know if in places, other cities might have different conceptions of what apartments like, but certainly New York City and probably places like Chicago, other eastern cities, will appreciate small apartments and lack of space. So if my family's here, I won't host. There's just nowhere to host, and it's nowhere to host without being pretty disruptive to the other. Either they're going to be disruptive on the game, or the game's going to be disrupting them. I don't have a space to kind of isolate. Some buildings are kind of cool. They'll have gaming rooms or just kind of rec rooms that you can sign out. And I wish we had one of those because I totally would have. I would have said, yeah, I'll sign out the room and you can we'll come hang out down there. But don't have that. So, I was like, well, I can run. I'm happy to run. I mean, I really want to. I wanted to kind of run the game for different people, and I've been playing in a bunch of their games. And I haven't run anything, so I thought, let me step in, and I'm happy to run something. I'll do that. Brian says, yeah, you need like a garage or basement or something. Yeah, or another room. I could see if you had, and some people do. Some people are lucky to have 2 bedrooms or that maybe they use one bedroom's an office, and you could kind of do something in there. A place you can kind of close off. My floor plan of my apartment, it's pretty open, other than the master bedroom and then my daughter's bedroom. Everything else is essentially open. So if we're in the kitchen, which has a table, it's right, it's open to the living room, which has the TV and stuff in it. So essentially, my wife and daughter would have to kind of lock themselves up in one of the bedrooms to kind of hang out. And it doesn't seem like fun. And even then, noise and things, one way or the other could be. And we only have one TV. It's in the living room. So if they got to leave the living room to go do something, then they have to be on iPads or some other kind of small, kind of device. So it's not quite the same. Just uncomfortably close company. Okay. So I said, look, I'll run something I can't host. Well, the people who were usually hosting weren't around, busy, whatever. So we were kind of going back and forth. And then someone's like, well, I could play if it was virtual. And so I said, well, if more people could play virtually, I can try. Because that I can do. I can lock myself in the bedroom, which is where this setup is, and do some gaming, and everyone else can have the run of the rest of the house. So that actually is doable for me. I don't really usually love to do that. And I usually try to, if I'm playing on Thursdays, I don't try to subtract a bunch of nights playing games. I know some folks. This is just some English breakfast tea, even though it's the evening for the working man. Some folks are lucky, and they can play in multiple evenings, but I don't. Or I don't feel like I don't like to take away that time, family time kind of thing. So I pretty much put it at that Thursdays. If there's another day, yeah, maybe on the odd Sunday I can do it. But that's once in a blue moon kind of thing. Once in a here and there, right? But it's not a thing. So I really just have the one day. So I can swap out days and do it. But I don't at the moment. I don't feel like I could just Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday I'm going to run games or play games, something like that online. Now, I've run games online. I've run games on the channel online. So I've done that before. This time, so a couple of things going on. So I haven't run this game online yet. And this game's not, it's not at all, I don't think it's at all difficult. And my experience has been it's not difficult to teach. It's not difficult to people on board. However, I do think it's not necessarily, because I think it's not D20 based, and because I'm not adding dice together, it's maybe not quite as friendly out of the box for VTTs or dice rollers as other games. It's certainly doable. For example, we were using a Dice Maiden bot, and Dice Maiden is good when you hit roll to roll something. It will give you the results of the die, individual dice and the sum. So you could ignore, if you're rolling 46 and you get 20, you could ignore the 20 part and just see, oh, what did I roll? Oh, I rolled, I don't know, whatever it would be, 6464 or 6455, whatever. Right. Okay, good. That's what I rolled. So, so I didn't really know that. I wasn't thinking about it up front. I'm also redoing the character sheets because I tweaked a couple things. I need to tweak my character sheet, and I still have to do that. I keep reminding myself to do that, and then I'm not doing it. Still need to do that. So, okay, so I thought, well, you can just write stuff down because there's really, the information's not, it's really not very much. The simplified form that I've been doing on these games, it's really, a name, if you want to give them a name. Hey, Ian. Something, I don't know. And then, your class you're calling, you can write that down. How many hit dice you have, it's just a number. even on the character sheet that I do have, the main part of it, which I could probably do in a bunch of different ways, but I really did it. I made this character sheet specifically for in-person play. It's really for tracking your hero dice, your dice you have, and then strain, which absorbs your dice. So you kind of have this little bit of a back and forth between, I'm gaining strain or losing strain. So you're moving kind of dice around. And I thought the character sheet is really a visualization tool for in-person play. And I didn't really think about that. Maybe it could be helpful for someone virtually, right? So we just kind of went. Now, the other thing that I think I didn't do, we didn't have cameras on. And I didn't really think about it at the time, but I think it would have helped. Now, I didn't really ask, again, this is just me. I just kind of got in there, we started talking, and then I kind of explained the game and I ran. I really didn't think about, well, what kind of settings should I have? And I think one thing I think for the future I will do is at least turn my camera on, because I do think you lose a dimension. And I think it's really more important as the GM, the referee, that people can kind of see everything that you're delivering. Because not that I'm tons of hand signals, but how your face is, what your hands are doing. Are you describing something and you might say, oh, it's a long, and you're doing kind of this motion and you're just doing it instinctively. But when there's nobody can see you, maybe they're visualizing something else. But even just being able to say something, no, it's long, and you do kind of like this, right? I think it can be meaningful. And I don't know that it super hurt, but I felt like, it's something I should have done. Now, I think ultimately I would probably say have everybody turn their cameras on if there's not some reason why they can't, because I like to see people's faces too. And there were a few times, because the other times I run visually, I've got faces. Like when I was running my game over COVID, that was Discord based, we were doing video cameras. So I could see it. You could see everybody. And I think it's good too, because I can see, you can get a sense of somebody's getting lost, or they're getting distracted. At one point someone stepped away. It was just really quick, but we didn't know. And it just so happened that they stepped up, I think, to go to the other side of the room to help their cat out. And I can appreciate that. You just didn't know. They're just kind of gone. And then just in that moment, they're stepping away thinking, oh, I'll just be gone a second. Nobody will really know. And then in that one moment, we're asking them a question. They're not there. And we can't tell, what's going on, because we can't see anything. If we saw them bodily stepping up and going out of frame, that would be okay. They stepped up and got out of frame, right? And it might even encourage someone to say, "Oh, I'll be back in a second." Oh, sorry, right? Whatever it is. Those things out of the way, I played through, which I don't have in front of me, Escape. So I gave them the choice. So I think, and now that I'm thinking about it, maybe I shouldn't have. And it's not because anything went poorly, because the game went fine, went well. I just would have liked to have seen what they'd done with the other scenario, because I think in some ways the other scenario opens things up. It's just a little bit more opportunity. So Escape is a reverse dungeon crawl. It's got two parts to it. One is the reverse dungeon crawl. The second is a kind of hex crawl. So you're escaping from a dungeon and then trying to get home across country is what the setup is. So you end up with a dungeon crawl to start, reverse, because you're starting in the dungeon, you're getting out, and then a short hex crawl to get home. But it's really, practically speaking, in terms of a one shot in about a 3-hour or so window, it's really just the dungeon crawl part. You don't get to the outdoors. I probably could make it even more push, but it's just, I did have one group that did really well because they really kind of pushed and we were playing fast. But it's also with only 2 people. And I started them essentially at first level, though I gave them a +1, which is kind of a little bit of a heroic. I made them 1+1. So basically it's 1+1 HD, which in my notation means that you have 1 hero die, but if you're doing your specialty, you get an extra die that cannot be, and that extra die, that +1, whatever is, strength can't take that away from you. It doesn't count towards your health, but it also can't be taken away. So it means is if you're a delver, which is my thief class, and you're doing delvery things, if you're at full strength, full health, you'll have 2 dice. And even if you get hurt, you'll always have that 1 die. So it's a little bit of a way to, and I've been toying with whether I should make that the default or not, but I think it's just a nice thing. I probably put it as I'm going over the referee's guide. and I'm tweaking that a bunch. I'm going to lay it out like I'm just finishing laying out the player's guide again. I'm going to probably add some language in the, hey, if you want to make them a little heroic or a little whatever, you can do this kind of thing. And I think so that was good. So I ended up giving them 1+1. There are two of them. So one chose a Delver, and the other chose a Sorcerer, which I'm glad because I've been enjoying running the Sorcerers. It's been fun to see them, how they use their magic. And of course, it helps me kind of see, well, how I've had good luck with I guess I would call it the sensibility, the logic of spell casting, which for me, because it's ad hoc, so there are no set spells, it's important that a referee and a player can come to a fairly quick understanding, both just so that no one gets frustrated, and two, because you don't want the game to, I don't want the game to stop, or in the middle of something and then the sorcerer wants to do something and it's like the Decker and the classic Decker and Shadowrun problem where it's like, okay, this guy's now going to go spend half an hour playing their own sort of side game, and then we'll come back to the action. I want it to resolve pretty quickly, and it has. I've had good luck, good experiences with, okay, and then I have a good idea. I mean, it's easy for me. I made it. It's my system. So I have a good situation of whatever. It did give me some, I guess I'll just get into kind of thing. So they chose a sorcerer. They chose the mimicry one, which is interesting too, because that was the one version of the sorcerer that I had when I ran the game for Daniel's crew. I ran it for my Thursday night crew, the Bandits Keep crew. I felt bad about the mimic sorcerer because I thought it was a little bit hard to grok, and I thought that the player had a kind of a tougher time with it than I was hoping they would, that I kind of wanted them to. So this is a chance for me to kind of see, okay, it's a different person. Can I set it up differently? Can I explain things differently? And I think I did, and they had a lot of fun with it. So I let them start off with keepsakes, which are these kind of the one time you can burn them for something big. And I'm trying to keep it pretty open because I don't want to write up a bunch of rules for it. This is what you can use your keepsake for, but it should be for a big, because it's kind of a one-time deal. Though I have allowed players to pick up more keepsakes, and I'll probably put a note about that in the. This is the other thing too with these referee guides, right? Or these referee when I'm putting it, it really has been a source of contention in myself as to what I should be putting in and what I just think, hey, look, just do it. Again, I feel really free to do it because it's my damn game. So if I want to do this thing, I'll just do what I want, right? Okay, because I know how it works and I'm not concerned about it. But I always get torn in this, like, look, if you download this game or buy this game or do whatever, playing it, you're running it, do what, as always, do what you like. Do what thou wilt is the whole of the law. That's what I put at the beginning of these books, because what I mean is that you do what you want. I'm trying to present a bunch of stuff to you that I hope makes sense, and all this you do it. So you have keepsakes, and you want people to have just one keepsake in their entire campaign, their entire life, and that's it. That's kind of like you use it. It's your nuclear option, and once you've lost it, it's over. That's fine. Or if you want to play like me, you're doing one shots or other kind of loosey goosey right now anyway, kind of games where you really just want to emphasize more fun, and you want somebody to be able to kind of have, get more than one, but it has to be whatever. Like when I ran it at ShireCon and somebody got another keepsake, it was a big kind of meaningful moment. It made, to me, it was, okay, this makes sense. It's almost like what do they say about, about certain art? It's hard to describe, but when you see it, this moment comes, you go, okay, this is kind of a moment, right? Which is hard to write down. Or with that, and I think you write it down, it just becomes like I don't know, and I think if I write it down like at the referee's discretion, you can get more keepsakes. It's like I think I've written down. Maybe I did write that down. Sounds kind of dry, which is what it should be like. There's a big moment, and they use their keepsake, and it all seemed to kind of come together. Boom. Any case, I gave them their keepsake because in this reverse dungeon crawl, you don't start with any equipment, which on the one hand makes it easier. I don't have to worry about kits or explaining any of that. On the other hand, of course, for the players, there's a challenge that now you have to just find whatever you can in the environment, though there's stuff around. I don't have like, here's the bag with your stuff in it kind of thing. But there's plenty of things around if you go looking in the right place. And, take some risks, which I think is appropriate for a dungeon crawl. But I also allowed the sorcerer to have something with him. So the mimicry sorcerer is all about mimicking creature abilities, creature aspects of creatures. I call them aspects. So I didn't want them to start off, which I think is one of my mistakes with the other game, is the mimicry sorcerer didn't have anything to start with. So then they were trying to find something, and there are things to do. There are some interesting things you could do, but I wanted to start them out with something. So they thought about it, and they ended up with an octopus tentacle. And one thing I didn't make clear to them, and I think I'm going to make the change. This is where the change in rules. So one thing I didn't make clear, I just let them roll with it, was basically they had this piece of octopus, and later on they had there was some hanging preserved, like a cow leg, shank or whatever. They took some of that. They were using like any aspect of the animal, right? Which is when the idea originally was that it's really like you have that thing, it kind of gives you the thing, right? So like bat wing gives you, you can do flight stuff with a bat, but not echolocation by a bat. But I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change it a little bit. I'm gonna make a tweak, which is that if you move away from the actual part, so you have this hock of we're gonna call it the leg and hoof of the cow, and you kind of take that hoof. Okay. If you're using it for the hoof aspect, that's just kind of its normal thing. If you want to use a different aspect of the animal, it's maybe a little bit more difficult, but you can do that. So that way you're a little bit more flexibility. It just makes it a little bit more difficult. So it's still encouraging you, because adding more difficulty is especially at low level, is tough. So I think it does still kind of what I want it to do, and gives a little more flexibility. The other thing that I went with is that they could, basically the mimicry sorcerer is all about mimicking it themselves. But I think I'm going to allow to open it up to other people and objects. Hey, Croco. With, again, it being something like another difficulty. So maybe on a person, 1 extra difficulty, on an object, 2 extra difficulty. Where it came up in the game was towards the end of the game, they had the octopus tentacle, and they were trying to get a rope from basically the top of this, or a window on the second floor of a castle, or a keep, to the outer wall, which is maybe 20 feet away. And they didn't have a grappling hook, something. So they were trying to figure out, well, if we could throw the rope across, you could make the throw, but how do you get the stick? And one of the ideas that came up was, what if I used the tentacle? Like when I'm doing like the sticky, right? The tentacle, the suckers and everything. That's going to be what I'm using, and I'm going to do it to the rope. We can then throw it, and the rope will sucker on and stick, which I thought was a really cool idea. So I was like, normally that's not really how it's supposed to work, but we'll run with it, right? And I think that it just gives them more usefulness. So I think I'm just going to add that in. Now, granted, if I'd run it the way I'm doing, putting on object would have been 2 more difficulty, which might have made it really maybe too difficult. But I think that to me is a little bit, it's the kind of difficulty you can try to deal with. So you can try to do it as a ritual, which takes more time, but you could try to do it. Got to get a lot of stuff. So maybe because remember, the whole point of the system is what kind of tools, what kind of teamwork, what kind of, what environmental stuff can you use to get more dice? So if you can get someone to help you, that's another die. You can get some other components, right? And the thing in Magic, it's all about a lot about sympathetic components, sympathetic components and the like. So you have 2 things. You have sympathetic components, or you have components. One kind is sympathetic, and the other kind is that like as like. So if you're trying to cast water magic and you have a blue gem, that blue gem, because it's blue and we perceive it as, metaphorically, it's often as blue. Okay. Those work together. That is sympathetic, right? That's that kind of like on like. Sympathetic is like you have a piece of something. That's kind of what the hoof is for the cow. Is the hoof of the cow is giving you a sympathetic connection to the power of the cow, kind of thing, right? So adding extra difficulty is tough, but that they can do stuff with. And they have a 33% chance per die, so it wouldn't be easy, but they could probably do it. They didn't end up doing that because they got into the fight with the bad guy, Hrothmal. And so a couple of interesting things. This was the first time that the party, they didn't explore a bunch. when I've run the game in this adventure in the past, the parties have been bigger. Okay. And other than the time I ran it on for the Thursday crew, I've been slow on the timer. I haven't really been, because there's kind of a ticking clock and things are happening that tell you that this dungeon is unstable and it's deteriorating. So you're just pushing you to leave. But I often kind of relax that timer a bit. So that gives people a chance to kind of look around a little bit more. I think on the Thursday game, because we were short on time, I would try to be pretty consistent with, okay, things are happening. And I rewrote some of them. And I think having done this, I'm going to rewrite a couple again. But, I was doing more of the, okay, things are happening. So that they were feeling more of that push. Also, they were only 2 people. And they were very wary. And they also had something for the first time something happened where there's a dead body in the first room you come in. And that dead body has a knife you can have as a dagger. It certainly gives you a clue that bad thing. If you didn't have an idea, bad things were happening. It definitely gives you a strong, hey, bad things are happening. But there's a point where it can rise up as a zombie, essentially. And this time, because I changed it and made it more clear that, hey, this other times I have just kind of bypassed the zombie rising up. I don't know why. I've either just forgotten it or they're in another room and I forgot to kind of activate it. There's just been a bunch of reasons, and it's fine. It doesn't really affect anything. But this time I was like on point. I was like, okay. And you see the body starting to rise up. And then they decided, so they had a chance to go kind of one direction that would lead into some other rooms and stuff. They could go down or they could go up. And there's a zombie that's in the stairs that go up. That's just it's just waiting there. It's just kind of stuck. In my mind, it wandered to a spot, like there was stuff going on, then it wandered to a spot, and it just kind of, it's undead. It's not even, it's a zombie, and it's not under anyone's direct control. So it just got to a point where there was nothing really around it, no stimuli, and so it just kind of stopped. And when somebody comes up the stairs, it's like, oh, there's some stimuli again, and then it goes after, and that's just what happened. But now they had zombies on both sides, and so it made, it made them act quickly, and how they acted was the Delver trips the zombie, causing it to kind of stumble down the stairs past her. The sorcerer had moved to the side, and then I just rolled some dice and like, oh yeah, and the zombies kind of collide. One zombie's getting up, this one kind of stumbled downstairs. They kind of bumped into each other and kind of laid out, and then they ran up the stairs, and they didn't come back to those levels of the dungeon. So normally they do some exploration and stuff before they end up going to the top, or they explore both the floor they're on and the only one below, and then go up, or sometimes they've explored this level, then gone up, and then gone down. But this time they sort of just by chance, and again they're a small party, and they're playing wary, right? They know things are going bad. There are 2 of these things here. They're not sticking around, so they were trying, because one of the things, and this is just the way the game is, okay? If you don't have a warrior, you're going to have a hard time fighting stuff. And that's just the reality of it. And I'm okay with it because I kind of feel like that, A, that's kind of how it should be. And B, it encourages you to come up with other solutions. So they did not have a warrior. So they know, and the player playing the Delver was super into figuring out all the odds. So she went on to, I don't know, I didn't, because we weren't sharing screens or anything. So I don't know if she was on any dice or some other platform where she was pulling up the probability. She might even have been doing it. Actually, was she doing it was she using Google Sheets? I wonder if I have hold on a minute. Let me see if I have I know she posted a screen grab at one point. Let me see if it's, she posted a screen grab. I will, oh, you know what? I don't have I'm not sharing my screen. She posted a screen grab, where she'd gone through and done all the work on figuring out how many dice, kind of what your odds are of dice. Because the dice odds, right, they're interesting in a sense because as you're adding more dice, that changes things, and it can also you also have that modifier. Like I said, if you have +1 on all your dice because you're doing a thing that you're supposed to be doing, which is kind of how it works at first level, you have 5 or 6s, which is a big deal. So if you have 1 dice, I'll just read off. I'm not going to bother sharing my screen yet, but so she did a whole Google or sheet where basically she went, okay. She went with dice. She first column dice. Actually, you know what? I will show. I'll show it. Let's do that. Why am I? Okay. So you can see here she's set up. All right, 6s, 5 and 6s. So you can look and see to get to about 50%, you need to have 4 dice. If you have 5 or 6, which would mean you're doing your specialty: warriors battling, delvers delving, bounders bounding, sorcerers casting spells. If you can get to 4 dice, you have 80% of getting 1 success. Now 2 successes is down to 40, and then of course 3, right? So it's obviously it still scales, but if you just need that 1 success, if you have 2 dice, which you're giving them the 1 + 1 meant that when they were at full health, they had 2 dice. They have a 55% chance of getting 1 success. So it's not terrible. Okay, but obviously you need 4 dice to get there, right? And if you need multiple successes, it's really bad. And like I mentioned, this is pretty much. This is how I designed it. Number 1, and I'm okay with it. I'm actually pretty darn fine with it. But what it does do is it does mean when you get into something, what I think I have to be careful of is when. So he's interesting too because it wasn't. So they got into the fight at the end. So basically, a couple things happened. They got up to, so there's you start off in this room. You start off on this level that there's not much there. There's a couple of prisoners, or I guess a prisoner you can rescue who's there. There's there's 2 bodies that you can loot, and there's some information. The first body in the first room has essentially a dagger and some coinage. It has a little bit of treasure if you want it, but it's mostly like, okay, they got a dagger, or you have there's a dagger. The second body is actually wearing a little bit of armor, has weapon, and has a scroll or a message that has some information on it, right? So you can get that. And then their prisoner also has some information you can get. And there's a magic, a magic dagger you can get if you fight the ghoul that's down in the basement, the bottom in the pits. So that's a tough fight, though. It's maybe you could get the because the magic dagger is literally stuck in its back. So it's possible you get the dagger without killing the ghoul, but that's kind of a tough one. But if you manage to do it, there's a magic weapon there. So they left quickly. They got the dagger from the dead body, but they didn't have anything else. Then they got to the storeroom. The storeroom's always a fun room because you've got some of these cultists, but things have gone horribly wrong. So they're kind of out for themselves, fighting or trying to fend off some more of these zombies. And it's been a fun encounter every time I've run it because I'm not running the cultists. The cultists are essentially, they're mooks. They're the equivalent of hireling types. They're normal folks who, they're bad, but they're, they have no class levels. They're not really fighters. They're just rank and file cultists who are not at all scary when they're not intimidating at the moment when they're trying to run away from some zombies. And they're very, very willing to do whatever it takes to survive, which is usually, it's pretty much always been when I've been running it, just aligning with the party who shows up and immediately looks more formidable than they are. And the party is more like, man to man, person to person, the party members are more formidable than they are, and they recognize that. So they usually fall in line and some kind of deal is made, and then either they escape somehow or they just escape because I'm not using attacks of opportunity. There's no stickiness. You can get up and run. Now the zombies can chase you and they can actually move as much as you can, but they always move last. I kept that rule with mine. It's like, yeah, they always go at the end. So in this case, same thing. They came up, made a deal, but the zombies. So then, unfortunately, the zombies took out one of the. So there are two of the cultists up there, and the zombies took out one. But they got the other guy, and they were able to get out. But then they, not necessarily a bad thing. So there's a lot. So the storeroom, I didn't try to, I really did not build this in terms of like, here's where you get this, here's where you get that. But I did try to, you're starting off with nothing. I want to give you opportunities to get some stuff. And I think it also, the way I tried to set it up was I wanted to make it, as a player, use your imagination. You're not going to find like, here is a backpack with a whole bunch of adventure stuff in it. It's here's all these, and I really tried to leave it kind of open. I think I even have written in the adventure, look, there's all kinds of supplies for basically construction and masonry and things like that. Whatever you imagine that you think might be used in there could be there. Roll dice, just someone says, oh, is there a chisel? Is there an axe? Like, yeah, those things are going to be there because they would be used for various parts of construction projects. Is there rope? Absolutely. Is there whatever? Yes. And there's also things like food. So hocks of meat hanging down. There's, like wine, I think, and there's others. Right? There's all kinds of stuff. There's, lantern oil. There's all kinds of things there. Okay. So it's a place where usually when the parties have gotten there, they tend to dispatch the zombies. They've teamed up with those guys, and then they'll kind of supply up a bit. Croco says, similar to a room description if you describe a room being a kitchen. Right, yeah, that's kind of what I'm trying to do. Instead of giving a whole list, a kind of Gygaxian list of X picks, Y shovels, Z whatever. I'm like, just come up, take some stuff, right? Keep it all in perspective. You're wearing a robe. You don't have a sack or a backpack, though there would be, if someone said, is there a sack in there? Yeah, there absolutely would be. Just pick up some stuff. And the thing is, it's supposed to be, and it's as written and as I play it, is stuff that pertains to mining and kind of masonry work, or kind of masonry work. And mining it kind of a little bit because they are kind of so I would say like excavation, mining, construction, right? Can you tell me how this thing you want, like, is there an elixir of endless life? It's like, how does that work for construction? Oh, well, construction workers don't want to die. Like, no, not there. But if you said like a maul, like a big hammer, I'll say, yeah, there probably is some big sledgehammery type hammer there. Sure. Is there a giant club? Probably not. But is there something that you could treat as a giant club? Probably there is. There probably is some piece of something down there that you say, yeah, that I will treat it as a giant club, even though it's technically not a giant club, right? Just if it makes sense, you can go. Cargo says you can then trust people to imagine the contents like a kitchen, right? And that's the same thing, right? I'm trusting to you. And look, I haven't had anybody abuse it and try to come up with something really goofy. Is there a wand of fireballs in there? Because you could use fireballs to clear out. Like, no, but it was in this setting and the way no, there's not. In some other game, maybe there is. It's fine. I don't need to try to police everybody's game. So, but the problem is for them was they grabbed a couple of lanterns and they were lighting the place on fire. And that worked, but then they kind of lit the whole place on fire and then went up the stairs. And the problem for them was not a problem for me. The problem for them was that then there had opportunities for them to have stuff, or kind of like when they're looking at ideas like, oh man, I wish we had some rope. I'm like, well, there was some in the storeroom, but you burnt it down. It's a raging inferno. So we lost a chance to get rope, lost a chance to get maybe some different tools, because my system really does, especially at low levels, it really does ask you to use everything you have in your arsenal. Like really open up your toolbox because you want those dice. You need those dice. Going back to that probability chart, like you got to do something that's not in your wheelhouse, and you're going to need multiple successes to do it. You need all the dice you can get. And if you can come up with rope and this and that and make some kind of MacGyver, you really want to, in other words, you really want to MacGyver the heck out of stuff. So this gets to the final fight. So you come upstairs to the main floor of the castle, and it's quiet. It's kind of a spot where you can kind of take a breather. There's a whole melee of dead versus the living outside. That's kind of the last puzzle. basically the last puzzle in this. Maybe I should put puzzle. I know it is a puzzle. I don't know. I would say puzzle in quotes. I'm not. And there's no particular solution to it, but it is a puzzle in the sense that you have to figure out your way around it. I have no idea what that would be. You can just try to run across and take your chances. I've had different groups that have done different things to try to get around. I think my favorite was what the Thursday night crew did, but they had the tools to do that. No other groups really had that, where they had the two sorcerers combine their magic together to make this essentially like a whirlwind filled with like dirt and earth and rocks and stuff, and just create a lane that they were then able to run down, which was awesome. Other groups didn't have the sorcerers. I didn't either. I was using basically BX magic that doesn't allow for that at that level, or I didn't have two sorcerers because there was an air sorcerer who was making the kind of whirlwind type art, and then the earth sorcerer adding the kind of rocks and dirt and stuff and doing that. So it was a really cool tag team maneuver, but just other folks didn't have those tools to do that. But folks have managed to do it. And a couple of times I've just ended at the end of I've ended the game just because timing and everything. Once the leader, who is upstairs, there's an upper floor, he's upstairs in kind of denial. He's got a prisoner. He's yelling at them, trying to blame them for what's happened. So they ended up in a fight with this person, and they won. One player used their keepsake to finally get him pushed out the window, fell to his death. But I was thinking about it, particularly afterwards. Like it's a bit of a, the combat for them is a little bit of a drag because they're just not good at it. And it's not a question of, this is not a situation of, well, my mistake, someone's comment, you shouldn't have gated the adventure behind this encounter. Bloop, 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 bloop. Well, it's not. I think I even mentioned, like, you don't have to, there's someone you can rescue. Yeah, you can take care of this guy, but you don't have to. Ideally, you're really, the finish is to escape the keep. There's nothing to say that you have to. And I think at least one group might have escaped and never gone upstairs and dealt with Hrothmall. They just left. It's totally valid. So it's not gated there. It is literally an optional, in the way that in kind of a sandboxy sort of situation, basically everything can be, or a lot of things, not everything's optional, but a lot of things are optional. Just like they didn't go downstairs and do that. They didn't go into the rooms and do that. It's fine. If they don't want to, they can't deal with Hrothmall, also fine. But they chose to, and it was a drag for them. So they ended up doing it. It ended up being a cool moment, a fun moment, where they finally, they had hurt him a little bit, and then they used their keepsake. I don't remember exactly what they did, this whole thing, and knocking him out the window. But it was tough for them because they didn't have a word. They didn't have somebody that scores on 30% of their rolls. I'm 33%, right? So 5 and 6s just to get everyone keeps the math straight. If you have a 1 in 6 chance, you need to roll 6 on a 6-side die. That's 16.666%. If you roll on 5s or 6s, it's up to 33.333%, right? They didn't have that. So it was a little bit of drag. And I thought at first, I'd be going like, I don't, and so I got some feedback the next day, or I asked for some feedback the next day. And basically all their issues were about the kind of virtual part of it, that, and this is what I was getting back to, my points about having cameras on so you can guys see each other. One of the players was having issues visualizing some of the spaces. But I didn't know because they didn't say anything to me in the game. They didn't say like, hey, I'm not getting it. And I thought, if you told me, I could have used a whiteboard. In fact, Discord has whiteboard features built in. I don't know if they're turned on for the server we were on, but they have whiteboard features. I could have whiteboarded it and shared my screen. But I also feel like I should have said, hey, is everybody getting it? And that's that part of like not being able to see people's faces. I was thinking like, I can't see a little bit that I might have been able to, if we were looking at each other, even through a camera, I might have been able to see, I don't know if they're quite getting it, or you can, you get a look like, I don't know. Okay. Let me explain. Didn't get that. And the other player didn't quite grok things until they saw the character sheet, which the other player had. And I guess they must have bought the game because I took the character sheets down. You can't download the character sheets right now because I know I have to fix them. And then she said, "Oh, that probably would have helped me kind of understand things better." So I was like, I should have had them fixed, and I should have handed them out because I just didn't realize they would be as helpful as they are. But they loved, the sorcerer loved the magic system. The delver, who's calculating all the odds, really liked that they got rewarded for doing their specialty, because they were saying that they hate games where you have to roll a 6. And my game has that, but if you do the thing your specialty is, then it's 5 or 6. And they thought that 5 or 6 just makes all the difference in the world. They like that. They really liked the teamwork aspects. They were constantly trying to help each other, and it was interesting because that they were so aware of the probabilities, because she's working them out and she's sharing them, that they really were trying to lean on each other. Like, hey, I want to help you do a sorcerer kind of thing because we need it, and you have the 5 or 6. Whereas if I try to do something else, it might just be, if I just try to attack the guy, I got to roll 6s. But if you do something as a spell, you're rolling 5 or 6s. So I should help you cast a spell as opposed to doing maybe a pointless attack. And that kind of thing, I like that. I appreciate. This was obviously an unusual group in the sense that they're very aware of those things. I think a lot of times people aren't aware of all that. Though I try to make folks aware. I don't get into all the odds, but I will say things like, hey, keep in mind, right? If someone's doing their specialty, they basically have double the chance of success that you do. So it behooves you to support each other in that way. Like, I do tell people that, but being very, very aware of it, I think does make a difference in terms of, encourage. I mean, they were encouraging each other. Like, I didn't have to encourage them to, hey, work together. It's like, no, they're encouraging. And they also had a lot of fun, like mucking around with the environment, trying to figure out how to juice things up, to do stuff. So system-wise, everything went well. I was able to explain it, I think, in fairly quickly. I think explaining it without any kind of visual aids, usually I'm in person, so I'm doing it that way. I think, again, cameras and images, I probably could have done a little bit better to help with that, would help. But I think that it was good. I was really had a lot of fun with it. I'm glad they had a lot of fun with it. And as I mentioned, I think my notes to myself for my next virtual game: make sure my camera's on. Probably encourage other folks to go cameras on unless there's some reason they can't. I keep a little whiteboard with me, which I don't know where it is. I think I put it away, that I use in online or in person games. I'm running in person. I have one of those little, and I showed it before. It's just a little cheapo little whiteboard. But what I'll do is I'll just put it on the table with some markers, and then players. I've had times where the players will be using it. I will use it sometimes if I feel like I need to sketch out a room because they're not understanding it, or I'm not doing a good job communicating it. I'll sketch it out, or I'll write for the investigative adventure. Last time when I was at ShireCon, I was using it to write down NPC names so they could keep track who's who more easily. So I'm writing that down, because not everybody brings notebooks and things. And I know I've been guilty of showing up at a table and not even having dice, just having myself. So I think having something and I try to bring scrap paper too, but the whiteboard's good because it's kind of communal and it feels like you can write for everybody to see. So I've enjoyed that. And I think having something like that set up for the virtual space would be good too. So it was a good time, another good test. I'm glad the Mimicry Sorcerer really liked it a lot. They were already thinking about, like, oh, what kind of things can I get? You went looking up, like, what are different abilities that animals have? So I think, like I said, that tweak of allowing some different things with the animal parts, I think will be good. Because I want to encourage people to use it. Because the thing is, my magic has a cost. You're rolled to cast, but it still has a cost attached to it. And you can pay that cost in different ways. And you can, like something I was thinking about, because I think it was Daniel might have said, like, oh, in other systems, he doesn't like if there's a cost to the magic, but it doesn't work, because usually it's you roll to cast, right? And I guess Shadow Dark, I think is like you roll to cast, right? And if it fails, you lose it, right? Kind of thing. In my system, you roll to cast, you fail, you don't lose there's no spell to lose, but you still take the strain for whatever you're trying to do. So I did make a note, I think, that it creates banes, which is things that the GM can do to make things worse. It's permission, really, but it's saying, like, you cast a spell that fails, effed up stuff can happen, and effed up stuff should happen. But you could still have effects work. Maybe you can have it work in an unexpectedly weird way. So, for instance, maybe you're trying to do bat wings and you get turned into some kind of monstrosity, which seems really cool until you can't turn back now. Something else weird happens you have to deal with. So there's some ways there, I think, to help mitigate that. Yeah, your casting failed. Maybe you can, in a sense, fail forward for casting, but now there's something else you're going to have to deal with, or something else going on. So I think I want to kind of encourage that, because, yeah, I do get that. Okay, you're failing your spell. Not only did your spell not count, but now you've taken on strain, and strains can be tough to deal with. But they really like that. So I think it was all good. I think the only thing from like a pacing standpoint, like I said, that final fight was a little bit of a drag. Afterwards, I thought about, should I have had Hrothmal just escape, try to run out and escape? I probably would, because they were having a hard time hurting him, but he wasn't exactly doing a lot to them. So it's one of those things where I need to take my own advice sometimes. You just get sucked into a situation. And I should have just stepped back and said, you know what? You should just get out of here. People are showing up. Bad things are happening. He's kind of statted right now as a necromancer type, but there's nothing he can really do necromantically in that moment, in that space. So it's just a bad spot for him. He's just kind of flailing away with a dagger, and it's just not a good situation for him. So I think you should maybe try to be more. I should play him as being more bombastic, but then when they kind of move in to attack him, just get the heck out of Dodge. And if they want to chase him, that could be a whole other kind of fun thing. Where does he go? What does he do? And then and go from there. Now, the caveat, or the end of that, is that you do get a nice feeling, especially when you're playing this as a one-shot and this is your last encounter. If he just runs away and the hot nonsense that happens isn't compelling, then it can feel like a little bit of letdown. It's like, oh, he ran away. That's it. Wah, wah, wah. Whereas in this way, at least you get to come back to like, yeah, we defeated him or he defeated us. It does have that sort of finality at the end of it. So it's kind of hard to say. And then if I was running this as just on a normal game, or if we were halfway through a session where I knew we were going to get to the hex crawling stuff, I would totally have him escape, because he could come back, and the other section could be somewhere down the line in a game. He could come out and be kind of trouble for you. But at the end of a one shot, having him surrendered, you just end up in a little bit of a spot where this is what they chose. I didn't force him, and this is what they chose their final encounter. It's got to do that. It's a little bit tough, but I have to figure out some ways to kind of maybe look and see what's happening there. Hey, Daryl. Daryl says, neck romantically, word of the day. Yes. On Valentine's Day, definitely neck romantically. Yes, very much so. So that was that game. So that was a lot of fun. I'm really trying to take every opportunity I can, obviously, to play this. And I do enjoy running it. I don't want to be that guy, but I guess I am that guy. I really do enjoy running it. And for me, I keep reiterating this, and I really need to figure out how to get to see if other people are playing it and how they're experiencing it. That's why I want to run some games online. I keep saying this, but I'm getting closer and closer to having what I need to run solo games using this, so that people can see how it runs, how the flow of it is. Because not that it has some amazing flow, but really I can run it. I don't need to look at the rules. I know how the magic works. Everything, you just kind of get a feel for how it works, and you can just run it, because you're doing is just establishing difficulty. And then it's kind of like, well, what are you, either you're doing your specialty or you're doing your not specialty. Now, this is because I'm using the very simplest kind of characters, and there are more complex characters you can build that are more granular, where it gets a little bit more like closer to more conventional characters look like. But I feel like that I like having a little more granularity if I'm doing a campaign game, some kind of ongoing game. I think having that granularity just allows for some different things, some different depth to it. For these kind of one shots, I'm just like, you're a delver. I'm not going to count thief skills. And like she wanted to use backstab with her delver last night. I said, fine. In other circumstances, I don't know if I have backstab. I think I tend to think of backstab as more of an evil thing and not really a part of a skill kit for someone who delves. But I'm like, fine, whatever. Because it is. I'm not going to, again, especially in a one shot, if this were a campaign, I might establish, hey, anyone can backstab, but it's evil sort of thing, versus, okay, it's part of your toolkit. But she's like, hey, can I backstab? I'm like, yeah, go for it. Hey, Bo. Asking about the magic. So Bo, I'm finishing up talking about the magic system, or me running my game Troupe on Thursday online for the first time. First time I'm running online, and I mentioned, so my magic system is ad hoc. There's no spells. So it's pretty important, vital even, that whoever's playing the sorcerer and casting spells and the referee can get to a understanding of what different spells do, how they work, because you're not looking up and saying this is fireball. It's like you're kind of to cast fireball in my game, you would judge it basically like, okay, someone is, say, I'm using kind of distance bands to say, oh, there's I'm trying to cast it over there kind of close, so one kind of distance band over. I'm going to get a flame to ignite, and then I'm hoping that I can make kind of that explosive sort of outburst of flame. And the funny thing is, too, just thinking about now, right? You can have something like fireball, right? Maybe your conception of fireball is the flame from the end of a fingertip that's going off there. That would be a different that. I haven't really thought about it, but that would be trying that spell in a different way with different difficulties, let's say, attached to it. But kind of the classic sort of you're creating a fireball. So how that would work in my game is, okay, anytime you have to instantiate magic, that's starting out difficulty 1. That's like the spark of magic. Okay, boom, that's 1. You're going a distance band away. That's 2. And so that's kind of it for, okay. And then you're the spark of fire. So your magic, distance, you're igniting a flame. That's 3rd. Now the extent of your fireball would really come down to how many successes, what I call boons, how many successes you roll. So if you only roll 1, it's more of like if there was somebody on that spot, they would get burned, but it wouldn't spread out. If you rolled 4, you would spread out, it would spread out more, right? So that's just how it works. So in game, that is literally how it would go. Someone goes like, oh, can I make a fireball? And that group of guys, 20, whatever, that far away. And that's how I say it. I was like, okay, well, this far. So it encourages you as a sorcerer to say, well, all right, if I got one to create the spark of magic, 2 to create that spark away from me, and 3rd to ignite the fire. Well, what if there's a torch already over there? What if the guys that are coming up that I want to try to burn, they have a torch in their hands? They're carrying a torch. Well, then great. You can use the torch, which essentially takes away one. Yes, you don't need to now, instead of igniting the torch, it's like, yeah, the torch is already there. It's just that expansion of it, which would be your successes anyway. Right. And what if I have a ruby? I have a ruby in my hand and I want to use my ruby to help because the ruby's red. I don't think the ruby's ought to be red. I don't know. It's a red ruby and I want to, all right, boom. Yeah, you got that. So and maybe someone else is like, I'm going to show my flint and tinder. Like, this is where you get people all, so you get, you can get a whole bunch of people who are trying to do things. Well, wait, what if I make a spark with my flint and tinder? What if I do something else? Right. Yeah. You get everybody in. And then you're rolling a bunch of dice, and that's the magic. But it's really up to you, sorcerer, in your imagination. And then the referee just has to work you through those steps. But the steps are all pretty simple. I tried to keep it really sort of simple in what you have to do. So you just kind of think about these things, and then if it's a matter of sort of intensifying effects, you don't need to count that into the difficulty. You just count that into your successes after you hit the difficulty. Because we're doing a dice pool, I'm only counting successes. I'm not counting numbers. So I don't have to do math. I don't have to say, like, it's DC 12, then DC 15. And then if it's DC 18, this happens. And if it's DC 22, this happens. No, I can just say, look, you got to get 3 successes to make the thing happen. If you roll 5 successes, then that 5 becomes the intensity hours. It could be different. You could say, I just want to burn really hot in that one spot because I want to hurt one person. In which case you could say, okay, now it just gets to be, it's like a much more intense flame, or you can have that other flame, that becomes kind of your choice as the sorcerer of how do you want that thing to go, basically. But that's why but notice I'm not referring to any rules. I have not turned to a rule book. I don't have a PDF of the rules, and I was able to run that through. And if you wanted to say, hey, I want to use my fingertip and have a flame kind of shoot in a line kind of thing, like that kind of fireball, we can figure that out too. And then it might be, okay, well, you don't have to, the spark is on basically at your person, so that makes it easier. You still need to ignite the flame, but you could, what if we have a torch? Okay, that takes care of that. And then it's all about, well, how far can you get it away? And then that kind of intensity. And then, optionally at that point, or is it, you might have an aiming situation because you're just doing it in basically a line. So there might be some other kind of aiming going on there. Let's see. Daryl asks, is that the same as Hadouken? No, I was thinking more, the Okay, so I see there's a conversation, Bo, talking about the Ken and Ryu, the Street Fighter 2 fireballs, where they're doing it. I was thinking more like where they actually like make the flame like almost like a dragon's breath thing, but narrow, where like a flame comes out. For you, what movie? There's a movie in my head when I'm thinking about that. I don't think it's Excalibur. They don't have anybody shooting flame out of their fingers. I know it's come up, but yes, another one would be the kind of the Ken one would be like the literally like this flame. Oh, they're just so slow. Those fireballs are so darn slow. Everyone's probably just jumping out of the way. Oh yeah, exactly. Sorcerer using his, Bo says sorcerer using his finger like Qui-Gon used his lightsaber on the blast door. Yep, that's another way you could try to do it. So it's really kind of flexible like that. But you have to have a good understanding of it, and understanding of it. But I think once you get that kind of in mind, you don't need to go and say, "Let me look at the spell book," and it's just you just have to agree on. Just come to an understanding, set the difficulty, and then rock and roll and see what happens. So anyway, that was that. It was a good time. I had a lot of fun. I'm always, I think every time I run the game, I was like, man, I'm so glad I ran it. And I just think that if you have a game you like, just run it. Whether you're like me, whether it's a game of your own devising somebody else's game, I feel like just run it. Obviously, you have to get a good set of people. I have not had a poor set of people yet. I'm not. I'm being what's the word? Selective, mostly. I mean, you can't really be selective when you're signing up to run a con game. But I've been running it at small cons, and people are really good, and then other folks have been great. All right, let's move along, shall we? Daryl says that flexible magic systems are favorable. Are they? What other systems? I know. So one of the things that really influenced me that I love was my time playing Barbarians of Lemuria, that has a flexible spell system. I know some of the games. I think some of the games in like the not vampire, whatever the masker. I don't know what not like World of Darkness. I think I forget what they call their spell games. I do small cons in every sense of the word. Mage the Ascension. Yeah, thanks. I think they do something similar, but I don't know of a lot of other games that. But I mean, I'm not trying to. I don't know of any other games that do what my game do. I'm literally not aware. I have no doubt that there are other games that they're not on top of mind. And I'm kind of glad that if there are a bunch of other games doing it that I haven't seen them yet, because then I'm just kind of doing my thing and I'm not accidentally, I know you can't steal, you can't copyright mechanics. I get that stuff. I'm still kind of trying to do my own thing. Now I will steal mechanics. Oh, among game designer discussions. Okay, cool. I mean, I think it's probably a double-edged sword a little bit, right? Because they're really, really flexible. You're really empowering a player to come up with anything. I imagine I haven't seen it come up in my thing yet, but you're not like Mage the Ascension. I think everyone's playing as mages, right? I think, and there's Ars Magica and stuff too, which I think is similar, where you're kind of everyone's got a mage. In my game, not everyone's going to be a mage. Obviously, not everyone's going to be a sorcerer. So I think, and part of why that I have set the strain and stuff is because I want it to be really flexible and powerful in its own right, but I don't want you to be able to take over the game. And so, at low levels, okay, yeah, you did this thing, but now you've got that strain and you can't do anything for a while. And now you're relying on other people. And then other people get to do stuff. And then maybe you can get to do something else. But of course, if they go wrong, maybe it goes wrong in a horrible way, right? So I want to try to balance it out a little bit and not go too crazy. Not go too crazy. Because it's hard. It's hard. I'm not saying I don't really have a sense yet of at high level play. Is it quadratic wizard still? Probably it still is to some degree. I think there are some ways that warriors and other folks can mitigate that stuff, because a warrior in combat at high levels is going to be kind of pretty brutal. If you're the sorcerer, you're not going to want to get close. And there's and a lot of the other thing too is my spells right now. There's not a lot of those spells. There's not Like mimicry can be good, but it's limited. There's not a lot of there's not, like Bo mentioned about doing a Qui-Gon type thing. You can do that, but there's not like knock and wizard lock and like those little cutesy spells that can really just make things, really frustrating for other players because, the wizard took the MacGuffin, ran through the door, cast wizard lock on it, and now we can't, now we're sort of, they just kind of got away, right? A lot of those spells that allow the wizard to just duplicate other people's stuff, we don't exist. So they can't duplicate, they can't just, mage armor and now I'm haha, or no. Now certain sorcerers could do like a wall of stone type thing, but then they're an elemental wizard and they don't have some of the other things. So you're making these choices about what, because I have these different, I using the old school term grammaries. So there's one for elements and you have to pick an element. So if you're an elemental sorcerer, you pick one element that So, air, earth, fire, water, you don't get all of them. So you're choosing. You want to be a pyromancer, you're a pyromancer, but then you don't have to be an aquamancer or hydromancer, I guess. If you're I want to be a terramancer. I don't know whatever it is, right? You get the idea, that kind of thing. So there's in some ways there's a lot of flexibility, but there's also more stringent limits than on your classic wizard that just has a spell book with everything in the kitchen sink inside. Let's see. Bo says a buddy was developing a Barleymancer. Yep, absolutely. A buddy was developing a D30-based system with a software magic system. I used it as an enchanter, so I primarily crafted magic items like a shield where the surface was a one-way gate to the shadow plane. Ooh, that's pretty cool. I don't have a lot of crafting in the game, so I'm not a huge fan of players crafting stuff. I have no problem with them finding people to craft for them, but finding people to craft for them, and I could definitely see at some point as a sorcerer type character working with a craftsman of some type to do something like that. But I don't know. I just feel like you're an adventurer. You're adventuring. You're not spending time. This idea that you're both adventuring all the time, but then yet in your spare time, you're a master blacksmith or something, or whatever, just doesn't. And then also, I don't know. It feels very MMO to me. But I do like, as long-term projects, doing stuff like that. I totally would be down for doing that as a project, right? Like, I'm spending, it's kind of becomes an adventure. I'm going to make this shield that can do this thing. What are the steps of doing it? But then again, I don't have a class that's based, because I have an enchanter. One of the magic schools is enchantment, but not enchantment like make magic objects. Is enchantment as in ensorcel people, mesmerize people. So you're affecting their morale and reaction, essentially, to use kind of the BX terms. And there's some fun effects like hold person. It's kind of cool. I think that's kind of cool. So hold person now is when you at certain thresholds, so you can basically, if you think of them kind of the reaction chart, if you get them to uncertain, you can then move over to basically where they're held, and it's not that there's some force holding them. It's that literally, it's like they've got literal analysis paralysis, right? They were uncertain, and then they're so uncertain that they're kind of stuck. So that's how hold. If you want to have a hold person in the game, that's how you would do it. Is you would try to get them towards uncertain, or maybe they're already there, and then it's like a shift over a little bit, and then you're in this kind of like they're held, they're just stuck, they can't decide, they're caught like that. And there are also things like confusion is kind of a version of this, where if you get them in the negatives, you can kind of drive them into kind of like a maddened sort of state where that's sort of confused. Or the charm person, if you get their reaction, you can push it all the way to like, oh, we love you kind of thing, which I think is pretty cool. I'm happy with that, but it's a different sort of enchantment. Let's see. Bo says they've decided that magic items should have mana batteries built in, so magic users will need to spend their mana to recharge them. That's interesting. I mean, a lot of things in like classic D&D have charges, and I know that, and I know I've made some magic items, and I'm not the first to have done this, who have built in ways of some interest to try to make it fun or interesting ways to refill charges. And burning your own, I think the thing is though, is that you want to make sure, I don't want to get too far off the beaten path, but my thing is, if you're going to have magic users put their own mana or their own spell points or whatever you're using slots into them, is you have to balance it somehow, because it's really easy. And maybe this is what you mean, this is what you intend, but if you're in a downtime situation, they can just recharge their mana over days, because they'll recharge all their devices and then they'll recharge their mana, and then Bob's your uncle, everything's fired up. So, and maybe that's the intention, right? And the intention is that they can do that. Or, you can have something that's more permanent. Like if they're imbuing this item with their mana or their spell points, their slots, that while the item has them, they don't. So, I'm going to put a 6th level slot for Fireball, let's just say some kind of empowered Fireball in this wand. Now that means that when I use this wand, it's got a lot of benefits that me casting it myself doesn't have. I don't have to wait. I can't get counterspelled. I can't get my concentration broken or whatever. If if something's hitting me while I'm casting, whatever it is, like I got that. But now I don't have that 6th level slot or however number of mana. That's gone. That's gone until either I can suck it back in from out of that wand, or I spend it. And once I spend it, I can then draw it back to myself naturally. I think I kind of lean towards the latter. I don't know. I'd have to think about balance stuff, but I kind of lean towards like make it a little bit of a investment, And I like the idea that means that when you find a wand with charges on it, that there's some wizard, either they're dead and so they don't care, or there's some wizard that doesn't have any mana because all their mana is wrapped up in one of these wands that they lost. Because the other thing you'd have fun was if you lose the wand until you maybe gain a level or something, like you don't get that back. It's gone. So that could be a kind of a fun. You could have a lot of fun with that concept, actually. Shabo says, yeah, but if they're recharging during downtime, they're not doing kind of R&D or making potions, working towards the next level. I mean, yes, there's a lot of variables, but I think a lot of campaigns don't have a lot of that stuff. And at low levels, you don't necessarily have the resource to do it. So it's very easy to just pour everything into your wands. And if you have wands that you can do like that, you just recharge easily, then you might not need potions. And I think for a wizard, if I have wands I can recharge like that, I think a potion, unless it's much cheaper, doesn't make sense for you to make. Why would I make a potion of invisibility when I can charge up a wand of invisibility? Obviously there's things like, well, you need to find there's a lot of, you get into a lot of variables. Like, okay, can I make potions? Can I make a potion for a spell I have? Is that something I can do? Because in a lot of games, that's not out of the box something a wizard can do. So if that's something a wizard can do, then yeah, that's better. Then can they make a wand? Well, if they have to find a wand and then do that sort of stuff, then it's easier to make potions. But then we're just getting into the weeds about what kind of different things are in your system. Let's see. Daryl says, or also using a wand or staff as a catalyst for bonus successful casting against miscast. Yeah, there you can. There's a lot of neat stuff I think you can do with wands and staffs and things generally. Bo's thinking about their next campaign, which would be a 1-to-1 time West Marches. Well, that in some ways makes it easier because then you're going to have built-in downtime usually anyway. But I'm not saying not to have it. I think it's just a style, right? I think it's, as a wizard, maybe it's fun to say that I don't need these charges. We're doing a West Marches style, and I'm playing on one day, and then I'm not going to play for a week. That when I come back that next week, after that week of time, all my spells are recharged, all my wands are recharged, kind of thing. Like, I think that's a fine thing, right? I don't usually do 1-to-1 time for the outside time because usually I'm not running West Marches with multiple parties. I'm just running with one, so I don't see the need for it. But I'd love to try it at someday. Someday I'll try it. Okay, let's get on with this. So Gus L sent me this, and I've been taking way too long to get around to it. So let's do it. Let's do it tonight. Tomb Robbers of the Crystal Frontier. I think I'm going to need my glasses for this. Which is for Old School Essentials. Writing, art, layout, and concept by Gus L. Editing by Nick Whelan and Ava Islam. Playtesting, Anthony Wu and Casey Grasky with review and support. Whoops. Okay. Whoops. Where am I going? All right. Let's see. How to use this book. And now, just to refresh, in case you have not seen me do one of these, and I would understand why. I haven't done one in a while. I've been slacking off on doing these of late. I used to read basically cover to cover. It would take forever. Some things would take me upwards of 8 or 10 episodes to do. It's just it's hard on me. It's not particularly friendly. People look, interest falls off after a while, right? So I changed my approach, which is what I'm going to do with this. And what I'm going to do now is where I'm going to be picking and choosing, trying to pick the highlights. The other thing to know is I do not pre-read these. I haven't gone through and pre-highlighted a bunch of things I want to talk about. My original pitch for this thing was, I remember when I used to, on a Saturday, let's say, I would go to the game store with a friend of mine and we would look at books on the shelves and we would, go over and say, and we'd find a cool book and you take it over to the other person like, hey man, look at this book. And you flip and like shows them stuff like, man, this is cool. Right. And you look at the books. And that's kind of how I pitched this, is we're looking at this book together. So it's like we're at the gaming store and we just found a book that calls to us. We open it up, we just start flipping it through and we see what catches our attention. I will try to obviously pick out the bits that I think are either A, the most interesting, or B, the most core to whatever this thing is trying to do. Adventure bits, rules bits, whatever bits. Inevitably, I will miss stuff. It's going to happen. It will probably happen tonight. It will probably happen more than once because I haven't pre-read it. I'm kind of scanning around, looking for stuff. And yeah, I will, if something is in a paragraph and I miss it and I trip over and go, or skip and go to the next paragraph or whatever the next page, it's going to happen. So there's sometimes some confusion because I will miss something and then I'll run up into a part of the book where that thing I missed is key to understanding what's happening in the moment. And sometimes I'll be able to go back and find it. And sometimes I'll just say, oh, well, I can't find it. Hopefully it's there, kind of thing. So just understand. I know every once in a while someone will get annoyed like, oh, I missed this or that. And it's like, yeah, it's because this is not a practiced thing. This is kind of a fun, let's kind of look at a book. Imagine you're at your friend's house and it's like, oh, well, look, I got some new books in the mail. And you just kind of get to skim through them for a bit. That's what we're doing here. It's not really a review in the sense that I will give my thoughts afterwards in terms of what I like about it, but it's mostly from reading it. I don't think you can ever get the full experience from reading it. I know there have been discussions back and forth of can you review something just from reading it? I think you can give it a review of sorts, but I do think that, and I've had this experience enough and other people have had enough where I do think that there is something you will not get if you don't play it, because some stuff's not going to read right to you and then you play it and it kind of clicks. Some stuff you think is going to play real well and then it doesn't in the moment, whatever, everything else, it doesn't work. Some things just kind of have a magic where you're like, hey, these rules or this thing is just kind of rough. It doesn't really make sense. But then you kind of, in play, you discover that there's either a payoff for that, or once you get past that, it makes it a lot of fun where maybe if you were just reading it, you would have thought like this is dragged, things like that. I feel like there's can be a lot of that stuff. So keep all that stuff in mind as we get into Tomb Robbers: The Crystal Frontier. Let me put on my janky glasses. Okay, so I'm really going to read a good chunk of this because I think it is important to understand what this book is and how we should be using it. So, Tomb Robbers of the Crystal Frontier is an introduction to both the dungeon crawl playstyle of classic fantasy role-playing games and the setting of Crystal Frontier. While the setting may be slightly different from the standard vernacular fantasy of the majority of early games and adventures, it should be easy enough to quickly grasp and run. There are no orcs or goblins on the Crystal Frontier, but in the manner of the Western genre, the role of cruel marauders and cowardly bushwhackers is filled by regular men and women. These and other differences may require a bit more explanation and expectations may need adjustment, but Tomb Robber remains an exploration adventure in the classic style, whatever its aesthetics. Cool. So now we get a sense of what it is. I still have this thing. I feel like, I think there's a little bit of almost an apologetic in here for, hey, they're no orcs or goblins, and you may need to reset expectations that it's not going to be orcs, it's not going to be monsters that are doing evil stuff, but people. But I just have never, in my experience, I've just never had that be a barrier. Like, whoa, like in all the I mean, granted, there are in my adventure escape, which I had talked about earlier, in my adventure escape, the most part, the bad guys are people, or you're dealing with people. And I haven't found players like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do with this bad guy because it's a person. And I've just felt that way. But I'm glad that they're calling it out, because people do seem to, no, I need my orcs. It's like, well, you're not getting your orcs. So there you go. To run this adventure as intended, you will need 4 to 6 first level characters created using the old school Essentials rules or another broadly compatible game. Non-human characters, or at least their ability to see in the dark, can be omitted to help emphasize the need for exploration and supplies. Okay, great. I'm going to just scoot down. So this is written on July 2022. And let's see. Okay, so the adventure is designed as an introductory one, a scenario for new adventurers thrown into the dangers of exploring the mythic underworld with little choice. But it need not be used so. The dungeon within Merkvay's Rock stands on its own and doesn't need the added complications of the adipose Mab's expedition or the character's deal. Okay, so basically they're saying you could take the dungeon out if you want and use separately. Okay. So we got some let's see, table of contents. So what is the scholar? The scholar, is this a class? No. Maybe? I don't know. All right, well, it's just okay. This is a scholar. You were lured from the stews and gutters of the world by promises of easy wealth. You've signed on as a treasure hunter, a gem robber with the band of the scholar Adipose Mab. Okay, so no, that the scholar is Adipose Mab. It's not you. Your travel and equipment costs paid in exchange for your labor. The profits of your first delve belong to Mab, though the unctuous scholar, that's a great adjective. The unctuous scholar promises a bonus and a map to other sites if you do well. So there's the situation, which I like. You get it right there. Paragraph 1. You work for someone. Your purse delves profits go to them, but then if you do everything which well, presuming also handing in your profits, you might get a bonus and a map. Mab's mule trains follow the spring freshets, that's also a nice word, down from the peaks of the Maiden Tombs along pilgrim trails where earthquake and landslide have left the high roads through the mountains tumbled at the bottom of jagged cliffs. Journey done, the crystal frontier stretches before you, a land lashed by sorcery, poisoned by magic, where rock and soil are dyed bold hues by arcane mordants, leaking from the translucent shards that fall nightly from the sky, blazing above the cursed land. So we have a very, very, very evocative landscape. When humanity's nations and magic were strong, the frontier was a shunned badland. In these fallen times, desperation has driven outcasts and refugees from both sides of the mountains to struggle here. They scratch out their existence in the poisonous painted soil and raise huge half-feral hogs. Nice. The lure of wealth also draws depraved treasure seekers who hunt for the voids within the sky crystals. Sometimes these are full of gold, eldritch artifacts, and the glittering gemstone reservoirs of arcane power called oculiths. Another nice word. Daryl says they prefer human-centered games. This game makes me reminisce of a Thieves' World flavor. Yeah, I mean, I do tend to like human-centered games too, only because it lets you go really weird with the non-human stuff. That it's just easier when you don't have players also being them. Just harder to keep things weird when you have to either A, explain everything to a player, or B, have them play them as a non-weird type. You know, because you really do get to be. I forget some of the terms people say for like the hats, or it's just humans wearing different hats, or humans with different head things. Yeah. Humans, like, you know, with a different wig on, basically. Adipose Mab's mule train. A wiry, weather-worn woman in her late 30s with greasy brown hair and black grit in the lines of her face, Mab looks little like a scholar. She prefers to think of herself as an explorer and tomb robber, though she's never worn the guild's stone skull mask. So there's some nice little world building there with the stone skull mask. She's a canny researcher and a decent leader. Let's see. Mab wants to be rich. And then she has a gem cutter named Flash and a couple of bodyguards, Kato and Caro, who are doppel soldats of Blue Meadows. No idea what that is, but again, it's a very evocative term. I guess doppel, isn't that like double doppelganger? And soldat, soldier? I don't know. We'll have to see. In the wild, she'll have a full expedition of several greenhorns. Greenhorns are rookies, essentially. In Scarlet Town, she can call up a dozen loyal thugs. Okay. So we get some things about her. We get some stats. I'm not really concerned with stats. Kato and Caro Bluid they have got some kind of berserker stuff going on. They are androgynous twins from the Blue Meadows with more than a bit of Ice Hell's ancestry. Some more evocative kind of little world building bits in here. They are veteran merchants guards, which are called Doppel Soldats, in the cant of their homeland, who have worked for Mab for 2 years. Okay, so they're androgynous twins, which I guess were the Doppel, and they're guards. There you get the Soldats. So they're called Doppel Soldats. Cool. And then we have greenhorns. Okay. So we have some gossip. Let's see. So I'm not going to read all the gossip ones, but we get like, I don't know why some are. So I guess it's just, I'm wondering because I see that some of them they have the alternate coloring, which I guess just part of that scheme is some of them are bolded and some aren't. Probably I like the fact that they're bolded, helps with the contrast. Let's see. So this is the first fact as they are spoken, as it says. Crystal tombs fall from the sky, streaking across the night every few months. Only a few have quote-unquote voids, the hollows where oculiths and other treasures are found. And I'll read one more too. Tomb crystal, the main material of the tombs, is magically poisonous, but only when it's shattered. The dust will root in flesh, propagating more crystals and slowly killing those it infects, finally turning them into lithwites. Ooh, that's cool. Okay. So there you go. And then I guess there's a third one because it seems interesting. Hey, my ear trumpet, thanks so much. Okay, gem cutters like Flash find the natural fracture lines in tomb crystal and facet them to safely open them for exploration. So he's a gem cutter, but not in what I was thinking originally, which is essentially making gems for sale. He's like the lockpick for getting in, right? He's there's a name for that. Shoot, I forget now. I forget the name for the guy that picks locks. Got a name. It's like you see it in crossword puzzles, but I haven't played crossword puzzles too much lately, so I forget the term. Anyway, okay, that's cool. So the deal. Merkveh was a well-known gem robber, a decent cutter, poor prospector, and the head of a cheery band of cutthroats. 6 months ago, he and his priest children rushed out of Scarlet Town, whooping that they'd returned richer than the old emperor, but they never did. Chabot says locksmith. No, I know. No, that one I got. No, there's another. No, it's another term that I'm thinking about. It's really a slang. It's something like a criminal, because it's really a kind of a criminal. I can't remember. It's something that would show up in like a New York Times crossword puzzle. Not a big deal. I just can't remember it. I can't remember. Okay. So they never returned. This is talking about Merkveh and the priest's children. Mab has somehow acquired a map that she claims leads to Merkveh's last find. That's where the party's going. Flash will cut the crystal tomb if it's still closed, after which the party will be the first to enter what Mab glibly calls Merkveh's Rock. The rest of the expedition will enter and recover what they can once the characters finish scouting. Okay, so now we know a little bit more about what the character's goal is. Their goal is to scout ahead into this particular crystal. Mab expects the party to abide by their agreement and turn over the treasure they discover. When they first return to the surface, she'll ask what they found before throwing down the rope. When she does lower the rope, she'll instruct the party to send their packs up first. While the party makes the ascent, she will search the packs and collect any treasures within. Okay, so it's possible. This is good. I will say this is clever to have the procedure out there because this then has possibilities and limitations. If the party wants to kind of keep stuff on their person, then they may be able to hide it, right? But if they put it in their packs, she's going to take it. but it's kind of set up so that the referee can easily say, here's how they're doing it. And it doesn't feel as much like a screw job, because there's like literally send up your packs, and then they're searching the packs. Okay, send up your person. And I'm sure she will still say, like, you got anything on your person. But then maybe the party could lie about it, right? Or it's in their pack, she's just going to take it. Which is fair. That's the deal. Mab's terms. Party scouts and explorers and then reports back. They can enter or exit whenever they want, but want to return all treasure they find. And give her a map and description of the tomb. When the party has scouted enough of the rock for Mab to take over exploring, about 10 rooms, she will consider the deal satisfied and can leave with their equipment. And I think they can leave with their equipment. If the party has delivered at least 1,000 gold pieces worth of treasure, Mab will give them a bonus of 500 gold and a map with locations of other potential treasure sites. If the party wants to continue exploring after scouting, Mab will reward them with 10% of the value they turn over and let them keep any non-treasure items they find, aka magic items. Oh, that's interesting. So there's a little bit of a thing here. You don't have to stop. Okay. If the party has given Mab a reason to distrust them, the entire expedition will be waiting at the top, ready for a fight. As the player characters emerge one by one, Mab will insist they lay down their arms, and once everyone is present and subdued, she'll explain the bargain they made again. On a first offense, Mab will forgive her employees for their greed, but will point out that double-crossing, snake-bellied deal-breakers tend to die very badly on the Crystal Frontier. After giving a report and getting a night's rest, the party can return to the rock or part ways with the expedition to wander alone in the waste. So there we go. All right. Now we get this note on the dungeon crawl playstyle. I'm not sure I want to read all of this. Tomb Robbers of the Crystal Frontier is written for a particular style of play. The classic dungeon crawl. This adventure focuses on a location, how the players will interact with it, and if the characters will survive it by unpuzzling its secrets. The dusty, low-fantasy Western aesthetic of Tomb Robbers is meant to set expectations of anti-heroic or aheroic play. Players who pursue the sort of high-fantasy heroism that involves glorious battle with monstrous creatures or a black-and-white approach to dungeon denizens will soon find their characters dead. Okay. Excellent. I think I'm going to skip the rest of this. One thing, there's this note about a couple of these creatures, I guess I'll say. It says, describe the more dangerous threats, the bear owl, guardian, stylite, and sleeper in ways that give players pause about engaging them in direct confrontation. Remind them they don't need to fight and allow them to flee, which I think is important stuff. Which is good. Okay, so here's the MIP. Looks like there's the entrance. I'm guessing is over here. He comes down. Is it going to area 10 or is it going to area? I guess we'll see. Oh, no, I guess is it. Wait, I guess there's two. I see exterior and I see exterior. Are there two cuts in there? I guess we'll see. But I always find the isometric maps really cool. Isometric maps cool, but I don't always love them for their readability. Okay, here we go. Two surface. There's this one is more clear. I guess this hole here is the actual entrance. What is this over here? There's a whole bunch. It's like, this is room. What room is this? Is this room 7 or room 8? I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. Because there are all these little letters here. And the problem is, whoops. I'm trying to see what. I guess we'll see when we get there. Like, are these all these smaller letter designations, are they part of room 7, room 8, a different room? I don't know. We'll see. It's a little. I almost wish they put the room numbers in a bit. So 7, if 7 is all this, I maybe put the 7 over here. I don't know. It's interesting. I like that they have the doors. You can see the indication of the doors swing, which ways the doors swing. This, I guess, is secret doors. I don't know. I don't know if I don't know. I just prefer, I think I probably prefer them attached, but that's just an aesthetic thing, attaching, because it does look like it's just a floating space, but I think the S is there to indicate that there's a secret door there to get in either way of there. That's cool. Let me see. There definitely some, if we're wondering about loops, there are definitely some different loops you can take. I like that there are multiple entrances and exits. Looks like something, the well. I'm not sure what the well is. We'll have to see. But it's not overwhelming, I think, which is good for a new party and a potential new referee. Into the Rock. Merkface stumbled across a small tomb fortress of the Empyrean people, nomads of the celestial spheres who wage war constantly over the resources of the fixed stars. They ride the vast deeps in magical crystal palaces, which also serve as their tombs. In death, the Empyrean nobility are sealed in their homes and sent on a final journey, which sees them plummet to a holy point on the dreaded terrestrial orb, the Crystal Frontier. That's a very cool idea. Because a couple things, it's just neat flavor. Like, that's a really cool concept, I think. And it also is a really good explanation for why there's a constant supply of these and why some of them have all kinds of stuff inside them, like a whole dungeon. It's because there are these crystal palaces. So I really like that. Because then you can always have more show up. And you can have them be of different sizes because they might be different types of Empyrean nobles. If it's some kind of Empyrean high noble, they may have a massive tomb, crystal palace, crystal tomb. Or it could be a minor noble that has a little one, or it could be someone else, maybe even more minor, that just has a void with some stuff inside. So I dig that very much. Okay. Empyrean societies in a constant struggle over resources, population, prestige, nobility, compete in excesses of cruelty and despotism, and the dead king within the rock was worse than most. His tomb is a monument to power and sadism, a maze of traps where former rivals and disloyal courtiers had been transformed into horrors. Much of his court was forced to commit ritual suicide and buried with their megalomaniacal liege. The tomb is overseen by the former vizier, aka like a wizard, of the dead king, now an undead creature known as the Stylite. It also contains one of the king's concubines, the Sleeper, a powerful sorceress who managed to evade the ritual suicide demanded by the dead king. Another inhabitant, the Guardian, was once sister of the Sleeper and a rival to the dead king. Transformed into an undead servant, he has partially subverted the Gaius, it's not Gaius, it's Gesh, that controlled him during tombs. Hold on a minute. The Guardian was once sister of the Sleeper and a rival to the dead king. Transformed into an undead servant. We're talking about the dead king, or the Guardian sister, so maybe she, so is that I don't know. I'm not sure who the he is in this case. Transformed into an undead servant, he has partially subverted the Gesh that controlled him during the tomb's long fall through the ether, but his consciousness has grown dim. Merkfey and his band are still within the tomb, transformed into half-living parodies of avarice. These entities have goals and desires. Crafty delvers can turn one or more of them into allies by unraveling the tomb's secrets and relationships. And there's an Appendix B, Factions, for details on the relationships and goals of each bolded entry. All right, cool. Bo says it'll always be Gaius to me. Yeah, I that's where I was corrected and I looked it up and it is indeed Gesh. But yes, I have to kind of force myself because I do just see Gaius. But I also have a niece with an Irish, I think it's an Irish term, Gesh, right? So I've gotten better at it because her name is Bevan and it is spelled, B-E-I-B-H-I-N-N. So I have to not, Beeben or whatever. My luck if you just tried to read it in English. Okay. Running random encounters. Random encounters are important because they embody the risk of excess caution. Additionally, the omens and signs below provide clues about what the players risk encountering. After an omen is rolled, the next random encounter will be whichever creature the omen corresponds to on the encounter list. Some creatures only found in certain areas. When rolling an encounter or omen, use a d8 for the outer tomb, which is areas 1 to 11, and 1d6 for the inner tomb, areas 12 through 18. So there's 1 to 11 is here. So 1 to 11 is here, all the way kind of this, I guess not including this area. All right. And then the inner is this here, which would be, where's 11? Yeah, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Yeah, okay. Similarly, the bear owl, stylight's eyes, and hunting echo either exist in limited numbers and will not appear after they are killed or certain conditions are met. If the encounter indicated by the dice cannot appear, treat those results as non-encounters. All right. Sounds pretty good to me. All right, so we got some random encounters. I'm just going to read the titles. A hunting echo, some glass spiders, a lith mummy, some lith zombies, stylight's eyes, tomb homunculi, a bear owl, or some of the priest's children. These are the Merkvay's band, who are Lithwites now. Then we get these omens and signs. They were just mentioned on the previous page. The tinkling sounds of glass. So one of them is the tinkling sounds of glass chimes. It seems to come from inside the room. Luminous markings in the crystal, sigils, letters, and signs in an unknowable dream language. Is that supposed to indicate? Because I thought, let me hold on a minute. It said there was an indication. After an omen is rolled, the next random encounter will be whichever creature that omen corresponds to on the encounter list. Okay. So maybe, is it 1-to-1? Okay, it must be. I almost think just visually if they'd put some kind of arrow or just something across, but I get it. So you're supposed to, so these encounters and these omens and signs line up. So these omens and signs refer to the hunting echo, that one I just read. I'll read this one. Rhythmic scraping, someone is sharpening a glass knife on stone. Draped webs of spun glass, as sharp as knives, but fragile and harmless to clothe the flesh, refers to the glass spiders. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's cool. It takes a minute to figure it out, but once you, just for me, I guess. And then you got it. All right, cool. I'm not going to read the stats for these. But we have them, which is good. We'll get some notes here about the exterior of Merkvay's rock. Let's see. A canted jumble of purplish crystal protrudes from the center of a slumping crater, refracting light through layers of party-colored dust. The radiating blades of crystal show no obvious voids or inclusions, but from their size and that of the crater, it's clear that the majority of the tomb is underground. A prolonged search, which Flash and Mab will conduct if the party doesn't, will reveal a burlap-covered hole at the base of an overhanging crystal. Okay, but there's another one too, right? And let's just, so we get to the burlap-covered hole. A rude curtain attached with pythons conceals a jagged hole in the base, at the base of the slanting tomb crystal. Edged in sharp, dusty fragments, the hole leads to a winding 30-foot crawl that ends 10 feet above the floor of Area 7H. When entering this way, there is a 2 in 6 chance the bear owl waits below. Mab will identify this entry as Merkvay Slop and reject it as unusable and dangerous. You'll also post a guard over it. Okay, so that's not where she's going to go. I see. Let's see. So that's the burlap covered hole. So it says that she's going to reject that entrance over there. But in this other paragraph, it says Mab will set up camp here, guarding the descent. She'll happily resupply the party with food and water if they need it. Okay. Oh, I see. Flash. Okay, so we know we got down here. Flash, the gem cutter, will take half a day to wander the crater looking for an ideal place to fasten an entrance. He taps crystals with his tuning forks and peers at the light reflected through them with oculars and prisms. That's very cool. Before deciding on the spot to make his cut. Masked and wrapped in padded layers, the gem cutter will drive his diamond-tipped wedges into the rock, splashing water and vinegar on the holes. Seemingly at random, Flash will strike the crystal with his hammer till the pattern of his work is complete and he turns to run. A splintering crack behind him opens into a sparkling light-filled doorway where a slab of tomb crystal has sloughed off to crash intact on the ground. Very cool. So, okay, so that would be... All right, so I guess the assumption... Well, I guess there's no assumption. So if you go in Flash's hole, you end up in Area 1. if you take the burlap hole, you go down to area 7. So it's very interesting, which I like. All right, you got the choices. You got a couple choices here. Take the easy route. Or no, sorry, that's not the way I want to say it. You got 2 choices here. Well, easy, you could go the quick route. Okay, so that's the first. You're going to find the burlap covered hole first, and you won't have to wait a half a day for Flash to do his business. But you're getting warned that, yeah, this is unstable, not good. But you could take it down there. So it's interesting because oftentimes you think in dungeons of having these two doorways, one being the kind of front door, and oftentimes you think about the front door is going to be the bad one, right? That's what they're expecting, all the trouble. Then you find some other door, like, ooh, maybe we should take this other door because it's it's the proverbial back door. It's going to take us in unnoticed somewhere, maybe not as well guarded or whatever, right? And sometimes that works out for you, sometimes it doesn't. Here it's interesting because there's not really a back door, front door. There's no proper door here. It's just these 2 entrances, and you're getting this warning that, yeah, you shouldn't. They're telling you, don't go down this one. This is not a good one to go down. But still, of course, being the kind of game we're playing, you're welcome to go down to it. No one's going to bodily stop you. Presumably, if you decide, no, we're going down, we like this hole, they'll do it. Or you can wait for Flash. So it'll be interesting to see if it is beneficial, if there is any benefit to starting in area 7 over area 1, if I can remember when we get there. You know what? And I should probably, let me see if I can, hold on a minute. I want to see if I can get the map. So I can have the map to view. So I can get it open so we can have the map on the one hand. All right, let's see if I can do this, see if this will work. Okay, hold on a minute. Now I gotta exit out of, go to view. There for a second. Give me 1 minute. I swear this is gonna work. It will work. Screenshots. Where's my screenshots folder? Okay, here we go. And then okay. This I think will be pretty good. And we do have a map over there, but it's good to have I do like when you're able to put in. So I guess I can leave this in the thing and use maybe this. Okay. Nice. 1, 2. So we're looking at this area down here. 1 to 2 to 3. And this goes towards 10, or you can go towards 4 to 8. Yep. Cool. Okay. Area 1, surface shaft. Scintillating daylight pours in from above, reflecting and refracting down a 20-foot shaft of smooth crystal. At the bottom, slightly domed floor is covered in delicate crystals. A path of crushed crystal leads northwest through a lopsided hexagonal arch. Another arch, undisturbed, leads east. So west would be going towards 2, east towards 2, west towards 3. 20-foot shaft. I think I'm digging this just formatting. So we have this bolded, and then we get this section here. So we know if it's bolded, we're going to get some more information. This is also bolded, so we get another thing here. And I hope they keep up that style because I like it. So I know immediately that, okay, it's a 20-foot shaft and some delicate crystals, and they're bolded. I know that there's more. If it's not bolded, then I know it is what it is. The hollow interior of a single enormous lavender crystal. Slippery floor walls offer only a few cracks to climbers. 5d6 versus dex. Oh, these are using it. This is Daniel likes to use this for doing attribute checks. So instead of rolling a d20 versus dex, let's say to climb or do something, what you do is you roll a number of d6 and you equate that to the difficulty. So an average check might be 3d6 versus your dex, let's say. If it's more difficult, 4d6. It's very difficult, 5d6. I like it. I think it's a good system. I think it's pretty easy to grok. So it's nice to see it here. Map stations a guard above with orders thrown on a rope. Okay. Delicate crystals, a microcosm of the larger tomb. These growths are fragile as feathers, and many have been crushed by heavy boots, disturbing the dust of their fragments or making a new path. Perhaps the eastern door will raise a cloud of tomb crystal dust. The dust can poison anyone who stays in the room or who re-enters it before it settles a turn later. Okay, so you have to kind of keep track of that a little bit. So if you go away that has not been gone before, and I see it, and they do have it noted. It's noted on both maps. Right, but we see, so just they're showing you here visually, here's all that powder. So if you go to this room, towards room 2, you have to step across this light purplish powder. That's going to cause the dust. But yellow is safe. So that's a really neat marking. I guess it doesn't really come up anywhere else because the rest of it all is yellow, which is maybe a missed opportunity to have some more kind of fun with that. I'm guessing we're going to have other ways you interact with the dust, but that's a cool idea. And I like that they show it visually. So I think maybe marking it on the map also, just like the first time, like, hey, that's crystal dust or something. Like if there was a key that says this stuff's crystal dust, but that's cool. Okay. So now I get area 2. That's this triangular bit here. Dark puzzle. Okay, let's see what we've got here. A passageway of polished reflective stone ascends from area 1. Beyond a triangular arch, the room opens to a bare triangular space of mirrored bright white crystal walls, rising to a peaked roof. Beneath the slick floor, shadows shift like fish under ice. So I'm just testing out this theory here. The layouts, we're going to see a section on triangular arch and a section on shadows, and that's what we get down here. That's cool. Triangular arch. The crystal here is clouded, pearlescent lavender that has been carved into meticulous patterns. Scholarship or arcane knowledge will reveal the magical significance of the carvings as minor wards against madness and contagion. Well, that's good. Shadows. When viewed, the shadowy images beneath the floor quickly resolve themselves into a scene. They show reflections of past events in the crypt throne, which is area 18. Viewing the first of these scenes is safe, but watching too many reflected dreams of the tomb's past overwhelms the mind with warped colors and phantasmagoria, another great word. After the first scene, another one will run randomly out of sequence. For each scene a character views after the first, they suffer the associated effect listed below. A full night's sleep between viewings prevents this, but the scenes are primed to play endlessly, one after another, as long as there is a viewer. Roll a new scene after every turn of viewing. Oh, that's cool. So let's see, where's the table? Whoops. Where's the table? Oh, we'll just list it below. Hold on a minute. Listed below where? I guess it's on the next page. Okay, there it is. Okay, and then we have these, what are these X's? The Wazir built this place for his monarch and set the burning ray traps. What? What burning ray traps? Where are the burning ray traps? Hold on a minute. What burning ray traps? Am I missing something? I'm just pulling out the written book just to see if... I'm not sure what that... I guess I'll just read it. I'm not sure what it pertains to. Okay, so the shadowy visions tell the history of this crystal tomb. Once it was a throne palace for... Okay, so maybe it's just part of the history. All right, I guess I'll just read. Let me just read it. That'll make the most sense. The shadowy visions tell the history of this crystal tomb. Once it was a throne palace for a despot of the Empyrean spheres. Now it is his final resting place. All the figures depicted within are Empyreans, lanky, sharp-featured, and green skin with antenna-like growths instead of ears. The Vizier built this place for his monarch and set the burning ray traps in the throne room to incinerate any who approached the king's mummy. Okay. I think I was just like looking, we talking about burning ray traps. Let's see if it's in the throne room. But I guess I guess my wondering was, you're getting the past of this. But we don't know the scenes yet. But we're getting this. I guess it just didn't totally make sense to me why we're getting this information here. So I was thinking that would be in the scenes, but I don't know. Maybe it's not, or maybe this is just what all the scenes mean. What the full story is, not sure. In any case, a cool despot, the crowned king murdered a rival to create the deathless Gilded Guard and compelled that rival's sister, the sad woman, to become one of his concubines. Sick with a slow, painful disease, the crowned king became ever more cruel, using the traps in his throne room, I think, to murder any who displease him. When he finally died, his inner circle and concubines committed suicide by poison, all save the sad woman, who drank a potion to protect her from death. The Gilded Guard, already deathless, still protects the throne room. The loyal Wazir went living into the tomb and guards it, transformed into the Stylight. All right, so then... Okay, so they have these X's. X. The crown is recognizable as the one on the altar in Area 14. The throne room is Area 18. The sad woman is the sleeper in Area 8. The Gilded Guard's armor is out of the Guardian in Area 17. The Wazir's robes and manner are recognizable as those of the Stylight in Area 9. I think this is trying to say, basically, I guess, what things you can gather from the visions. I almost wish, so I'm guessing, my guess is that we come here. Yeah, I think that was giving us, okay. I think this is giving us the skinny as the referee for the basically the complete story. And then these are telling us kind of what I don't know why they have the X's there. I don't know what that. I don't know the X symbology. I'm just not sure what it does for us. For me. So we have some events. A crowned king and his wazir tour a natural crystal cave. The wazir gestures and the king sneers, right? And then they just going all this stuff. A noble in battle armor kneels before a crowned king. The king is angry. He grips his throne, and burning rays from the wall melt the noble. So I think we're supposed to, I think all that stuff on the other page, it's kind of all this stuff. It's organized a bit. I don't know. I feel like I don't love the way that's organized just because of how the information's coming across, but I think I get it now. And then we have some effects. So, for instance, if you watch that first event, then you get several vague ideas about crystal structure form to occur. Wait, several vague ideas about crystal structure form occur to the viewer, providing training, quote unquote, in tomb crystal fastening. Oh, that's cool. So there's actually some different ones. All right, so obviously that one's a good one, but there's some bad ones here. Like the king's pain causes a sympathetic lung disease. The viewer coughs and hacks when they're under stress, making stealth impossible until cured. Ooh, that's a tough one. All right, so that's really cool. I think the ordering of the information I would have preferred, or some notation. I don't know what the X's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is there 6 here? No, there's more than 6. I don't know what the X's are for. If it's just like a bullet, even though they're not using bullet formatting because the text isn't hanging. In any case, okay. It's basically just telling you, hey, the sad woman is the sleeper. The Gilded armor is that there. It's basically telling you, oh, like when you see that, I think what it's trying to say, which I appreciate, just maybe, I don't know, I think maybe it could be conveyed a little bit better, at least for me, is that, hey, if you're looking at that vision, you get the vision of the Wazir. When you see the Stylight later, presuming you see it, you will recognize, oh, that's the Wazir. So it's kind of giving you this background. It's giving you some kind of a hint. Like, oh, the Wazir is the Stylight. Or that creature, since I don't know if you learned the name Stylight. But okay. Good and good and good. All right, now we get to Area 3. And I really do like these little maplets. So here we're at this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So not a pentagonal room. Oh, which is what it says right here. A pentagonal chamber of glassy lavender. There's some gold inlay, 2 doors. I'm not going to read through all the rooms, so we're just going to kind of be singing along till maybe we get something. So one thing I just noticed. So here we have I don't know why I'm just noticing it now, but that's just how it works. So something else I appreciate about the layout here. So we get the name of the areas. I always like when areas have names, by the way. I just like them. I'm guessing we scroll back up. So here we get Mirror of the Past, Surface Shaft. I like having names. And also what I just was noticing, these outdoor lighting, right? So now we, in terms of that light versus darkness, remember we got that hint, that note in the beginning that this is a beginning adventure that's really, this is a function of old school. So the old school dungeons and dungeoneering and the mythic underworld. So darkness plays a big factor, right? So, but we're learning, we're being told right here, really importantly, hey, what is there lighting? As one of the things we're being a note. So we immediately get the name and we get, okay, is it lit? Notice here, area 2, which I just passed over, is called Mirror of the Past. It's dark and there's a puzzle. So that tells us, okay, it's dark. So now we got to figure out, it gives us a cue and it's obvious. Do we need to tell the party to light up something or not? And also, by the way, it's got a puzzle in there. So kind of keep that in mind. And then we get to this other room, third room, and we got lighting again. So lighting from the outside, so outdoor lighting. And that could be key because there could be other things inside that light it that maybe have a different quality. But this we would describe as that there's still light from the outside that's glimmering in. And we also know there's treasure here. Let's see where the treasure is. I guess, is it the veins of gold inlay? Yep, snaking streaks of hammered gold inscribed with meandering sigils fill the wall's natural cracks. Removing the gold is safe, but noisy. The work will damage improvised tools and destroys weapons and take 2 turns to produce 400 gold pieces worth of hacked gold. Okay, that's cool. So there you go. It's it's cool. It's treasure, but it's not coins, which makes sense because these are sort of alien creatures and their coins don't have any, not going to have any intrinsic value, right? It's going to be what they're made. If they're made of gold, that's great. But if it's just like it's a shell, that's that's their currency, then that probably doesn't help much. But gold is always valuable. 1-800 cash for gold. Now we get to the singing crystals area, which it's dark, has a trap and a treasure. I really like that. And I'm guessing if there's a creature, we'll get creature potentially, if there is one. Maybe. The hallway leading to this room is nearly choked with pale green crystal shafts. This is where we area 4. We are 1, 2, 3, 4. So I think we're talking about this area here. Wrist-thick hexagonal bars that jut from the floor, walls, and ceiling at peculiar angles, slowing passage. Within the room are thigh and torso-thick pale green crystal columns that form a web of obstacles. 2 corpses lie in the center. So now I think we're talking about, I see they're actually talking about this. Not this entrance, but right here. 2 corpses lie in the center of this web, the body of a failed treasure hunter crumpled on top of a skeleton in fluted armor. And then we got the crystal shafts, crystal columns, 2 corpses. So what is the trap part of it? Crystal shafts, narrow shafts of bright, glassy green, bisect the hall and outer edge of the chamber in an awkward jumble. Any touch produces a ringing, resonating tone that numbs the ears. They can be bypassed with time-consuming effort and gyrations. But not telling us, I kind of like to know how much time-consuming is it? I guess by gyrations, it means you're... I think they mean not that you're standing there doing like the truffle shuffle, like like what's his name from the... Not that kind of gyrations, like you're doing some weird dance. But I think that you're doing like in... what was that movie with... in Ocean's 12, I forget what's his name, the French guy doing the like dancing through the lasers, except instead of lasers, they're crystals. I'm not quite sure gyration would be the word I would choose for that, but it's definitely makes for a funnier image. But I think I get what they're talking about. So I guess that's the trap part, right? Broad shafts of peridot green laced with cracks, and so tangled that they're nearly impossible to avoid without prodigious tumbling skills. Any touch causes the columns to resonate with one another. So the crystal shafts are in this part leading to the room. Inside the room are the columns. Any touch causes the comps to resonate, producing a high warbling song. At first, this is merely painful, but in moments, living creatures will begin to bleed from the eyes, nose, and mouth. Allow PCs in the room one action, after which they must save versus poison or collapse unconscious. If they are indecisive or argue amongst themselves, consider that an action. The crystal's deadly song continues for a turn, and any unconscious victim still in the room will die of a massive brain hemorrhage. The danger can be avoided by stopping up one's ears with wax traditionally, which muffles the calm song to mere teeth-rattling unpleasantness. So that is pretty good. I mean, that's a tough but fair, because you're getting, so it's an interesting trap, because if you get stuck inside and those things go off, save versus poison are basically you're dead in a turn. Now, you have a turn, which means that if anybody, so this is an interesting kind of thing, because, well, a couple things. Number one, you get the setup. You're coming down that hallway to that room. Someone's going to touch a shaft, I presume. And they're going to get that resonance, which one should and would presume that. So you get through there and you get to a room that's covered with all this stuff and they're thicker things and whatever. I think it would make sense to presume that effect is at least the same here. Now, you may not appreciate that it's a bigger effect, though. I think the size of these columns, they have a color. You can think of a color coding. These are all pale green, and they have this particular effect. Will hopefully, theoretically, give players a clue that this is going to be worse. And then if they do, then it's like, oh, you failed. Right? Oh, really bad things can happen. I mean, if everybody fails their save versus poison, that's TPK. If one person survives, I suppose it's up to you as the GM how many people you let them lug out of there in a turn. And I would probably let them take everybody out. I feel like 10 minutes is probably enough time to just drag people out of that box. You got to just, though, you could argue, well, where were they when, I don't know. Well, you probably have some fun with it, figure it out, but whatever. But if you take the hint from the small one, put some stuff in your ears, you're okay. So it's a really neat, I feel like it's a neat trap. It makes sense given the way it's set up. I like the idea of the crystals of different colors having different effects that you can play around with. I think that's a neat thing also. So that's I dig it. I dig it a lot. And I wonder, I don't know if they are, but we've already had 2 areas with different colored crystals that have different effects. It would be kind of neat. One thing I think they could have done, again, using the map here, is color these. So everything's purple, but if they gave these green, it would help maybe remind that these are different. Like maybe just generic, it's purple, but then here it becomes green because it's green. And the other one, I mean, the white's kind of harder to do in the coloring, but you could kind of set it off on these maps like they did with the crystal dust to kind of show like, oh yeah, there's different crystals here with different properties. That's cool. All right, so that's that. So area 5 is over. No, where are we going? Oh, you're over here. Merkby's camp, which is dim, so we get a little bit of light, and there's a monster. The air stinks of putrid meat. Light trickles in from above, refracted through jumbled purple panes to illuminate a trio of canvas bundles, a snapped pole, and a shattered oil flask on the ground. Saddlebags are stacked along the walls. So the canvas bundles, 6-foot-long canvas cigars, corpses wrapped for burial. After a turn, these dead will lurch to life, ripping their shrouds to reveal a pair of aggressive lith zombies and a lith white. If any words are exchanged, the white will identify itself as heart-eating Merkveh. And then Mab can confirm the corpse as Merkveh. Oops. And we got some saddlebags. So I'm just going to read because we have the monsters here. They have a note here of being crystal encrusted. Lith zombies always act last. That's kind of your classic zombie thing. Those wounded in combat can become poisoned when tomb crystal dust gets into their wounds. After combat, the wounded must make a con check or suffer a level of tomb crystal poisoning, which there's an appendix for, but that's cool. And then, okay, so it's the same for both the white and the zombies. Then we get Area 6, Insisted Beast. That's another nice term. Over there. Which has, what's the beast? A bloated, so there's a well. And down the well is a bloated monstrosity, sobbing in a shallow pool of its own endless tears. Oh no. The horror has the face of a green-skinned, sharp-featured young man. The rest of its bulk is meat, scabs, cancers, strange organs, and jutting crystal spikes shot through with pulsing veins. This particolored mass is too ungainly to climb from the well. It is monstrously and utterly unreasonable. Despite its human face and piteous weeping, it will charge immediately to murder and crush anyone or anything that reaches the bottom of the well. It will not stop and has no sense of self-preservation. That's pretty sad. And gross, but cool. Area 7 is the chambered hall that's dark, has a monster, a treasure, and a trap. Referee's note, a secret door is concealed at the back of niche F. So that's there. Okay, so 7 is this whole setup here. With a whole bunch of doors. Door. It's an interesting way of mapping it. Because normally what I would think of is this be 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I wonder if there's a reason. I think it's supposed to be, I guess because they wanted to keep it all one area. Because so far, basically, each area has been basically a room. In this case, we have an area that has multiple rooms. It's just an interesting way of laying it out. I think at first blush did make this a little bit confusing to look at because I couldn't tell what the A, B, C, D. It wasn't clear if I referred to 7 or 8. Now reading it through, it's more or less fine. Okay, let's see. Bronze doors, barrel niches, a sarcophagus of faceted black tomb crystal filled to the edge with foul-smelling reddish liquid. Beneath the filthy water are the bones and jewelry of an Empyrean noble. Fishing for one turn will discover a golden pectoral of interlocking hexagons, a pair of hexagonal jade cufflinks, and a hexed bronze dagger. Oh, that's nice. With blue glowing lines inscribed in the hilt. Even a sip of the tomb's vile brew requires a save versus poison to avoid dysentery. Oh, boy. Well, that's a little injecting a little Old West. I feel like dysentery is very much on point for a disease you would pick up in a Western. Oh, look at this. This is great, too, for some lovely visuals. Failure results in constant vomiting, fountaining evacuation, and a persistent weakness, giving a 4-point penalty to all rolls until the next session, unless cured by magic. That's interesting. Next session. I wonder. So it's not. Now you can rest for weeks, but that guy's gone until the next session, unless he's cured by magic. That might be a little bit tough. A day, 2 days, unless cured or some kind of save. No, you're down for the session. That's fountaining evacuation is a wonderfully descriptive turn of phrase. Okay, we got some more stuff, and then where's the secret door? Is in here. So sparkling in its niche is a 12-foot statue of peeling gilt bronze. It depicts an armored Empyrean champion raising her silvered khopesh, see Appendix C, above her head in a salute. The statue is valuable, worth 5,000 gold pieces in a real city, but only 500 gold pieces in Scarlet Town, but weighs 30 tons and won't fit through most doors. Behind the statue, there's another typo. Behind the statue is a secret door that leads to Area 13, the Tomb of Traitors. I think you just kind of got to get lucky with that or find it from the other side because there's no it's your normal secret door. There's not a particular clue in here that I'm thinking of that would lead you to believe there is a secret passage there. So I guess if you're an elf or somebody with elf-like stats that has a detect secret doors thing, you might be able to get it that way. Or maybe because there's a statue there, you just go for it. But cool. Let's see. The door can be, so here we do have a note about the secret door. It can be detected by tapping the rear wall, or by holding a bright light very close to it, revealing its translucence. Oh, okay, but still, I imagine you have to get behind the statue to do that. The door can be smashed open, or it can be opened by careful examination of its edges. Beyond the door is a short, rough passage that steeply ascends to an identical door, obvious from the passage side. This passage is a safe area, untroubled by wandering monsters. That's very good. Nefarious explorers could hide loot to avoid turning it over to Mab, or even hide themselves to make Mab believe they've gone missing, though it will take weeks before she abandons the site. Okay, so it's I think it's super interesting here, right? Because this is not stuff you would communicate directly to the PCs, but it's for your knowledge that if they thought about it, if they find that secret passage, it's theirs, and they can hide there or hide stuff there, whatever. So that's really a good, clever use of it if the party thinks about it. And it's just being told here so that if the party thinks about it, the referee's not going to go, oh, no, I need to roll for wandering crouches or maybe for Mab. Like here, they're saying, Mab's not going to find it. No creature's going to find it. So go ahead and let him use it. We got some more stuff. Let's see. I'm curious about that extra surface. Okay, here's where this is where Merkve came in. So this area G here is where the surface is. Refracted light trickles from an awkward hole 10 feet above the floor that leads to a winding, sharply angled tunnel with an exit on the surface, Merkve's slop, which Mab rejected. The exit will be guarded by an unsavory porcine, or porcine, I'm not sure, greenhorn named Tubbs. No, Tubbs. Come on, what happened to Crockett? Where's Crockett and Tubbs should be together? Come on. Boo. Tubbs is better than that. The floor of the niche is scattered with shattered bones, emerald green feathers, and patches of coarse black fur. Some of these have also become caught on the jagged edges of the crystal hole in the ceiling. When the bear owl isn't wandering, such as when it's recuperating from an injury or resting after a large meal, this niche is its nest. If it hasn't been encountered in the session, there's a 3 in 6 chance it will be resting here. All right, cool. So we got the bear owl, which I'm sure is completely different than an owl bear. Cool. Tubbs, the greenhorn. Boo, Tubbs. Come on, man. You're better. Tubbs deserve better than that. Okay, area 8, the prism tomb, which is illuminated, has a treasure and a trap. The safe path on the tiles mimics the yellow path of the mark below. I see. So that is the trap, which is also on the big map. A square chamber carved from glassy crystal, the color of milk. The prisms point ominously down from the ceiling, and the floor is covered in glittering tiles. 5 crystal coffins grow from the walls. Their lids have been sculpted into Empyrean forms and sealed shut with gold. When a living creature stands at the threshold of this room, the prisms on the ceiling flare with white light and begin to hum. Well, that doesn't seem like a good sign. Glittering tiles, panes of polished crystal tile, the floor, and pressure plates beneath activate a trap that will destroy any unliving being that enters the room, or any living one who fails to follow an unmarked safe path. Once triggered, beams of searing light stab down the offender from the prisms above, reducing them to ash. Save versus wands will allow the incautious to leap back through the doorway with only a few burns, aka 1d6 damage, while immunity to fire prevents any injury, and fire resistance adds a +4 to the save. Avoiding the floor prevents the traps from triggering. Levitation, a rope, web, a scaffold, etc. Players can discover the unmarked safe path via careful testing with thrown objects or by speaking with the stylite. Aha, so the stylite knows. The path forms the double diamond shape of the King's Mark. All right, so there you go. Cool. That's a nice puzzle. Oh, and there we see it in detail. Nice. Let's see. Oh, and then we get the sleeper. The sleeper will blink awake the moment the crystal around her is cracked and stare intensely with huge, angry purple eyes. If a player chooses to attack her while she is still encased, they will hit automatically and inflict ×4 damage, like a sleep attack. If not, Thuvia will pound her fist against the crystal to demand immediate release. She is a powerful sorceress and an imperious princess of a long-destroyed Empyrean dynasty. Initially, she will be well-disposed enough towards her rescuers to overlook their lack of manners, but will respond to disrespect with a deadly display of maleficence, a net or beam of red blazing light. She will not kill any survivors of this initial maleficence, so long as they immediately surrender. Ooh, interesting. So that's cool. And there's some other treasures. Nice. She's a 7th level magic user. Yeah, no, nothing to sneeze at. So we have the Tomb of the Stylite is 9, which is where over here. Anything about the Stylite? The Stylite is devoted to protecting the tomb and restoring his king to life. He believes the second is within his power if the sleeper is killed, and he can escape the tomb with both the dead king's corpse and the royal oculith from the throne room. That's a really cool picture. The Stylite will enlist the party in his efforts, but is a false ally. The promises of power and wealth that he makes are a deception. The only aid he will offer is a brief explanation of traps in the outer tomb, including the double diamond pattern of the king's mark that allows one to safely approach the coffins. He will also send one of his eyes to accompany any dupes who agree to kill the sleeper. Okay. Oh, and then the eyes, I see. So he's got a bunch of eyes. A bunch of eyes. Very cool. And then we get Area 18, the Geode Grave, which is dark and has a monster in it. Some Lith zombies. Area, and then we're getting into the good stuff. Area 811. Did we miss Area 10? Oh, that was Area 10 was here. I see. Okay. The Muraled Hall. Dark has a puzzle. Murals dancing and convorting. The motley clad green people are painted at a bacchanal. Some genuflect towards the steps, eyes closed. The dancers' eyes are open and glitter with carved semi-precious stones. Nice. So what's the puzzle here? Whoops. Midway up the steps, there are several holes bored into the green crystal ceiling. They're visible but not immediately obvious. A pressure plate on the third step triggers a spear trap. Brass rods tipped with sharp blades plunge from the holes above at a variety of angles, inflicting 1d6 plus 2 damage. And you can save versus, I guess save versus device. Would that be like save versus spell, I guess? To anyone on the steps. It takes 1 turn for the trap to reset after it's triggered, as hidden cranks retract the spears with a clattering sound. It's easy to avoid the trap by stepping over the pressure plate on the third step. The face of the steps is painted with murals, including the double diamonds of the King's Mark among various triangles, gem shapes, and hexagons. The King's Mark is a button, and pressing it disarms the pressure plate and spear trap for 6 turns. Oh, very cool. Area 12 is the bronze portal. That's also dark in another puzzle. Above the door itself is a motto inlaid in tiny blue tiles that offers a clue to the puzzle. Light my mark and witness my glory. Oh, nice. 4 harsh geometric sculptures of fanged and clawed 4-armed apes. If lit, the pale green smoke will induce visions, exploding geometric stars, crawling fractals, and a deeply comforting sense of unity. The vision lasts 6 turns and inflicts -2 to all rolls while they last. Save versus poison must also be rolled. On a failure, gain 1 point of wisdom permanently, and on success, take a -1 penalty to any future saves versus paralysis. Womp, womp, womp. Oh, let's see, there's a puzzle door solution. Oh, so you have to turn. So there's a circular puzzle door, a 10-foot diameter slab of bronze that sinks entirely into the floor. When it opens, it is sealed with a puissant magic and an ornate puzzle lock. See illustration. Physical force alone cannot breach the door until its magical wards are circumvented or dispelled. The lock can be opened 4 ways. So 1 is you can use the Stylite's lesser key. 2, you can use magic. You can also do a light spell, or you can do the puzzle. That's good. I like that there's some different things different ways to do the puzzle. And there we get it. So you could hand that to the players, and they need to kind of turn things around to get it. And then we have a solution. I guess that's the solution they want in purple. Yeah. Okay. Okay. The Tomb of Traders is dim with map. So there's a nice, it's a nice, I guess, a nice combination of sort of rooms with thinky things, rooms with fighty things, or potentially fighty things. Obviously, there you have wandering creatures could potentially show up, which you don't get when you're reading it too, right? And that's also often the fun of these things. It's not just the stuff that's written in these keys, but also the stuff that could be wandering by while you're trying to deal with something else. Suddenly, something shows up. So where's the Empyrean Wraith? Hold on, I missed something. I missed something cool. Tormented Wraith. And what does the Wraith want? Demands of Empyrean Wraith. It might demand to gorge oneself to near bursting, now and once a day on sweets if available. And the effect, if it's ignored, a petulant child, constant screaming destroys the mind. Maybe the demand might be to never show mercy. Any who raise their hands against you must die. And its wraith is an embittered soldier, and the effect of ignored is slow atrophy of the limbs. Oh boy, these are some tough ones. So I guess I see. So you can get these wraiths, and then basically by removing a curse. Okay, that's good, and those are fun. Faceted shrines, got another trap. Sealed tomb. The illustrations are really good. I really like them. The Tomb of Nobles. There's a guardian demon. That's slick. Confident contents. We get another table of those. The guardian cell. There's the guardian. Oh, that's cool. Haunted armor. As a possessed suit of oversized armor, the knight is immune to normal missiles. They bounce off or plunge harmlessly into the empty spaces. Take only 1 hit point of damage from cutting or thrusting weapons. Likewise, fire and cold inflict only half damage. So this is a tough one. Get out your clubs and maces and bludgeoning weaponry. All right. The Crypt, here we go. The Crypt Throne. Dim and Troupe. This is 18. And now we are at last. Throne room. Swirling darkness and green light shine from an inlaid floor and cast long shifting shadows among the jagged carvings on the blue-black crystal walls. All geometry in the room points towards the dais at the rear, where 3 short steps elevate an ornate throne. A mummy slumps there, crowned in silver and holding a glittering orb that pulses with its own green light. We have the inlaid floor is a sparkling masterwork of tiny crystal tiles. The first person to step on the floor is allowed a single action before the rays fire. Afterwards, any pressure on the floor instantly produces a matrix of searing doom, which requires a save versus wands at -2 for anything that wishes to leap back in the passage to avoid a dramatic death. The rays only function so long as there's weight on the ornate throne and are activated by pressure on the floor. Triggering them can be avoided by climbing along the walls to the throne itself. Easy enough given the wall's many carvings. Building some sort of scaffolding or using magic to levitate above the floor would also work. Alternatively, the trap can be disarmed by lassoing the dead king's corpse off his throne or by incinerating his remains with a thrown flask of flaming oil. So that might not make the whatchamacallit happy, the Wazir. Ornate throne, an outcropping of carved crystal inlaid with thin ropes of gold and decorated with scenes of conquest. Atop it, the dead king's crumbling mummy rests, wrapped in dust and stained silk. His robes are embroidered with weeping Empyreans, and there's a platinum circlet on his head. The mummy poses no danger in itself, but its weight keeps the burning ray trap active. Chiseling the gold inway. I like that they're telling you how long it takes to chisel the stuff, but it produces some tomb crystal dust. And you get some gold. The glittering orb is a huge oculith of the largest size. throbs with green light in the mummy's lap. It's sturdy enough that it would not be damaged by falling from the throne. However, should the orb land on the floor while the burning rays are still active, they will destroy it. The massive fireball resulting from its destruction will destroy the crypt throne and collapse the room's ceiling. Anyone in the room, if the orb is detonated, must save versus breath or die. Survivors are trapped in tons of unstable rubble, breathing clouds of tomb crystal dust that inflicts a level of tomb crystal poisoning every 2 turns. After the orb explodes, the fire will race up the hall, causing 3d6 damage to anyone there or the guardian's cell. Whoo! All right, and then we have some notes about concluding the adventure. Where's the stylite? Did I miss the stylite? I feel like I wanted to see the stylite, and I don't remember seeing it. Where are you, stylite? Or was that's not the sleeper, right? The sleeper's not the stylite. Or is the stylite the X? Hold on, is the stylite the X? No, where am I thinking of? Oh, there it is. Oh, they're right. That's the Wazir is the stylite. Okay. I was mistaken. So, if concluding the adventure, the referee should not have any expectation about how the foray into Merkvay's rock will end. The party may explore the whole dungeon in a single delve, or they might return to the surface several times to recuperate in Mab's camp. They may honor their agreement with Mab by dutifully returning loot over to her, or they may conspire to trick her and keep treasure for themselves. It's entirely possible they will all die in the tomb, leaving behind ravaged corpses for a future band of adventurers to find. Well, there you go. So there's some more stuff there, what I will leave. We have some appendix material about the Occolith. And we have the crystal poisoning infection stages. So 1 is bodily excretions turn to glittering pastel tomb crystal. Most notably, sweat will harden into fragile sheets, and tiny crystal tears must occasionally be picked out of one's eyes. No negative effects. But then, patches of crystal build up on bone, hair, and skin. They result in random bruises, stiff joints, and frequent aching pains. You lose a little dex. Then things just keep getting worse and worse. So yeah, you do not want. Then we have some notes about fascinating crystal and about Occulith and wizardry. And there's a little table here or something with kind of some about faceting, which is really cool because that's like there's a whole little setting here that's just kind of hinted at with the going for random crystals and doing stuff. So I like they give you some details about the how to do the faceting. Presuming that you're going to. Well, I guess I don't know if there's more materials for this out there. I imagine he said the kind of crystal frontier is a setting, so I guess there's more. But I like that even if you just have this, you have some stuff you can work with. And then we have some notes about factions, about Mab, Merkvay, Stylite, the Dead King, the Sleeper, the Guardian. And then we have some items. You can get the Blood Drinking Small Sword, a Crystal Executioner Sword, the Empyrean Panoply, the Lesser Key, and the Mask of Command. Oh, and there's more. Red Tomb. And we have some... Are these spells? What is it? First level. Red Tome, not Tomb. Hundreds of loose plates pressed from rose gold and collected in a palm-sized folio. The cover is a rock crystal lens that magnifies the writing within, allowing the grimoire to be read. That's very cool. The Red Tome's spells are written in the Empyrean wizard's alphabet, but are close enough to the academic traditions of formal magic they can be decoded after some study and adapted to the practices of terrestrial wizardry. Oh, cool. So you have a whole bunch of new spells. That's really awesome. And then we have Scarlet Town and Environs. A Scarlet Town thug. I'm just going to go through here. Speculators buy and transport oculiths and tomb treasure to the imperial port of Arum Pharaoh, or more rarely to the Warlock King's capital at the Ford of Horns. The contents of their storehouses are worth tens of thousands of gold pieces, and they guard their wealth with entourages of hired thugs. We have something about gem robbers, different ones, philanthropists, some intrigues. You can roll up some intrigues on a 2d10. The last one, number 20, is murder! Not the usual bar stabbing or revenge strangling, but a string of grisly killings that have all the marks of ritualistic killings. The allotropes are offering 500 gold to find the killer. The gossip hints they're trying to hide their guilt. Bum, bum, bum. Ooh, and then we get a cool map of what's going on. The Emperor's Ribbon, the Diamond Desert, the Golden Valley, the Barrow Fields, the Maiden Tombs, the Bay of Fallen Stars. The Frontier Map, the map and selections from the block printed pamphlet. The learned account of the adventurous Madame Adelpha Mab. Oh, nice. Common Grave. What is this? Is this another thing? What's this? What's this? Oh, wow. So you get a whole other little... Really? Is that in here too? Is it just in the PDF? Or am I blessed? Is this an appendix? It is here. A low-level crystal. So you get a second Crystal Frontier adventure. Nice. Well, it's beyond my scope to read that, but just know you get a second little adventure in here. Oh, not really little. Oh, this is the map. I was like, well, that map, wait a minute, that's the same map. But even still, that other, what was that map was here. That's a pretty good little freebie there. And now, okay, cool. I wish if I'd known that referee's map was there, I would have used that in my printout instead of the other one. Because I like that with these notes, the notations. Oh, there's a player map, okay. There's a door puzzle. Prism tomb floor. I wonder if you're meant to kind of be able to see, because it says unmarked, but this you can kind of make out the ways you can go. And then we have, ooh, expedition tracking sheet. Ah, that's a nice one. I need to make some things like that in another map. And then, oh, what is that? The, like the OGL type dealy. Phantasmagorical Western fantasy. All right. Now, I think this is a really great adventure. I don't really have too many. I think the only note, and it's not even really a bad thing. I just, something I really liked was the different colored crystals having different effects. And I was kind of thinking maybe that would get leveraged later on. Like, oh, and then later on you might get the white crystal with sort of mind effects, the green crystal with hearing effects, and maybe there'd be different crystal colors that would have different effects. And because they have different colors, which I think is really clever, once you figure out the colors, you could do some really neat things with the different colors and figuring out what they mean, and then utilize them different ways. And you get you get tastes of it in those early rooms. The white crystal over here, the green crystal over here. But and again, I'm breezing through. So if there are other elements and I just miss them, then I miss them. But I think that's ripe to go further, push those a bit more would be really cool. But yeah, this is a fun, I don't know, this seems like a fun adventure. It's definitely got some deadly stuff in there. If you like your OSR, you like your old school stuff deadly, it's got some deadly stuff. But I think it's also got what I like, which is if you're smart and you're clever, a little bit of luck here and there, but being cautious, as I think you could probably steer your way clear of a lot of that stuff. I think the puzzles are interesting. I like that there's, for the ones that are more puzzly, that there's some multiple things are given, like, hey, use light, use this, use that, or do this other thing, right? And the context makes sense. Like, it is a tomb. It has been sealed. This is, yes, so it has magic on there. So you got to figure out a way around the magic of that magic lock. It's not, you can't just shove it down. And if that question, well, why hasn't somebody done it before? Like, why is it still active? It's like, because this is a tomb. And it's probably a fairly fresh tomb at that, right? And when it's a mechanical trap, he has a little note about here's the mechanism that has those things. And we don't know exactly what it is, but we say, okay, these gears are going to be cranking to pull up those spears back up. So you get a sense of what's causing things to happen. And I really like the setting, the Crystal Frontier. Yeah, it's got this kind of Western vibe, but it's also is a really interesting fantasy. This idea of these crystals that drop every so often from the sky, some of them big, some of them small, whatever. It's like you have a constant source of adventuring, which I think is a really, really cool idea. And I'd love to see more about it. I only kind of really skimmed the town only because I got it at the end of the stream. If I'd hit that first, I probably would have read it more, but I think it's good to put that in the appendix as you don't need it. And, get to the meat in the adventure first. And if you want to start in town or go to town afterwards, then you've got that afterwards. Thanks a bunch to Gus L for sending it to me. If anybody's run it, let me know how your experience is running or playing in it, obviously. But I feel like most of my audience comes at it from the referee side, less the player side. It's got beautiful illustrations. I think the layout is, for the most part, I had a couple things that confused me, but part of that might just be me. I really like the use of bold and how if there's something bolded, then there's that section like, okay, if it's bold, I know to see more about it. I like putting the little bits of the map next to different areas. I think that's always nice when you can, and here it makes sense. I did feel like the numbering here on this map isn't maybe as clear as it could be, just with a couple of these. But again, it's something that when I look at it, just looking at the map, it struck me as like, oh, it's not quite so intuitive to know that this 7 covered this whole area. But when you see it inside, it makes more sense. So I think it's probably just like, oh, at first glance, I'm like, like that's weird, but okay, that's fine. It's all good, right? We all have our own styles and our own ways we like to organize things. So yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thanks for hanging out with me on a Saturday night as I read through all of this. And if you stuck around earlier for when I was going over my session recap, thanks for hanging around for that also. I think that's all I got, folks. Have a great rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Game on, everybody. And I'll talk to you later. Bye now.